to Brother Mason and Brother Lincoln Bryant for inviting me. I have seen the flyers of this program, and I have planned to come to get to meet my brothers and sisters from back home, to get to meet former schoolmates and friends. The outgoing president is my classmate from the Booker Washington Institute, and Joe Mason is my friend and brother, so it's just a delight to be here. With all protocol observed, I would like to now install the newly elected officers. So you may raise your right hand.
Sorry. Stop that. I want to welcome all our viewers and listeners across the globe. Thank you. That's the past inaugurations of the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas. Today is their convention. It is our convention, and we hope to bring you live images here, whatever you are following us in different parts of the country, including right here in inside Liberia. Our team making their way there. It's a heavy pull down the ring. We're going to bring you all of that. Stay tuned. I'm Alfonso Ziensot of the Liberia Public Radio and Lpr-Tv on this Alja virtual convention. So we hope to in with all of our guys standing by here. Hopefully it do us a favor here. Stay tuned. I will be right back.
Thank you very much.
Let me see the hands of the warrior in this house. Put your hands together for the Lord. Make some noise. Let the devil know we have the power. Let me see you fire. Because the warrior I'm the leader. That's the warrior I'm the hero. Yes, I'm Almighty God. That's my warrior I'm a hero. Jesus, you are my God. That's my warrior I'm a winner. He's still before me. He's still behind me. He's moving everywhere. My God, my protector. One way they shall gather. 7 ways they shall scatter. My enemy will fall under my feet. That's right. My God has lifted me higher. My God is my warrior, I'm a leader. Oh, my God is my warrior, I'm a hero. Warrior, 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 warrior. My God is my warrior, I'm a winner. Jesus, you my God. My God is my warrior, I'm a hero. Oh, winner. You are a winner. I am a winner. Winner. You are a winner. Someone when you know you should have killed me before my time. But not this time that I am more than a conqueror. I am untouchable. I am unremovable. I am unshakable and undefeatable. Moto. Holy Ghost fire. Moto. Hey. Moto be fire. Are you ready to declare the decree? Are you ready to go? Come on. To the right, Moto. To the left, Moto. To the front, Moto. To the back, Moto.
we hope to be linking control with our folks there. That's Minister Abraham Tappet making a contribution here this afternoon, right here on this day here at the convention of Alja. So let's stay tuned with us. We're going to be try our best to bring you all of the happening.
Eric the magic figures. Abeyo, Adieguyo, Toyo Abeyo, Toya Niemua. 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 Abeyo, Ade Abaile. Yo salade loyale, abe abaile o. Abamureji o, mo ba ti jaye, omo oba ti ji o. O wa emu o, ko ji de bonsu deya o. Kamuda de owe. When you say loyale ye, kamudu you say loyale ye, kamuda. You say ade ye, kamuda de no swawe.
We are trying to link in control with our folks there. That's the Association of Liberian Journalists in America. I'm Afonso Z, and so we're trying to do the best we can to bring you to what is happening to right now. We're going to welcome to the virtual
electoral process of our country.
Yeah, let's go.
All of us are aware that elections globally may have the propensity to instill discipline in the country by changing one leader to another or create confusion. So it is important that all of us in the media make sure we hold those who govern us accountable. In Africa, 2010, in Nigeria, 2010 and 11, and in Togo, those parameters that were the motivating factor for violence in those countries are clearly being seen in our country. And if nothing is done to remedy the situation, degenerate into a chaotic process, we will have to blame ourselves. So the union continue to caution the leadership of the country to engage in meaningful venture, bringing together both stakeholders in the political setting, the religious institution, and the media to make sure that we do not return to the axis of war. But we think the perfect recipe is the rule of law. If the rule of law is not observed and people who perpetrate these violence are not brought to justice, there will be no peace in our country. And we think there will be peace if we all unite. There was a situation in Grand Jigen, though perpetrators are still alive. Similar electoral violence continue to move around the country, trucking of voters. The referendum that is pending, there is no adequate information. There's a lot of confusion in our country. So we want to commend Alja for this convention. Alja is always with the Liberian media, especially the press union, engaging in those kind of activities that will bring stability to our country. The union will continue to work with all of you as usual, and you always by us. What we think we can do as Liberians, both Alja and PUL and the entire media community, is to pressurize those who in authority to respect the rule of law and make sure that constitutional provisions that are needed for peace and stability are upheld in our country. So the union will not relent. We'll continue to speak against ills in society. We'll continue to sensitize the Liberian people so they can make an informed decision during the senatorial elections. We want to commend you for this exercise. We wish you well. And your anniversary is the anniversary of the media community in Liberia. You did not leave us in Liberia, but while in the United States, you organize yourselves and continue to help us. Let us remember during the heat of the coronavirus, Alja made a donation, which greatly helped the Liberian media community. Though it may not be adequate as we expected, but it was timely. And we'll continue to work with Alja in this process. There are a lot of constraints in our country. The coronavirus affecting the sector, the media sector. They are poorly economic condition, and we trust that Alja will continue to work with us so that we can restore stability in the media sector. Thank you very much. Happy anniversary.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey. Unique to this year's convention is the record.
That's the voice of President Charles Coffey of Alja on the line from Liberia, part of this voice convention. Let's go back to the delegates. That's a PF chapter. We're waiting to get connected with the Minnesota chapter as well.
Of the ELBC LBS.
A de facto Alja member. Yes. De facto to all
motivated you into broadcast or to get into broadcast journalism?
Well, brother, I'm sort of chameleon. To consider because my idea into broadcasting went in a different direction. Everywhere I lived, whenever I saw that I was important, I thought that should be my profession. I lived in Westward in the time of my area for 5 years. And the only way in and out of Westward was by airplane. And I always thought I would be a pilot. Then when I left Westward, I came back to Monrovia. I started reading newspapers and listening a lot to the radio station for ELBC. And that was in 1973. And that's where my whole idea changed. That I think I should become a journalist or a broadcaster.
Mhm. And so before getting into broadcasting itself at ELBC, I understand you had a group, and this group used to also go from campus to campus recording various events to be broadcast. What is the name of that group, and what was your experience, overall experience, and who were involved in that group that prepared the way for your official duty or responsibility at ELBC?
Are you talking about the Voice of Wi-Fi? That was our group.
Yes, the Voice of Wi-Fi.
Where I grew up in Ogi Town. And the Voice of Wi-Fi was a group that we organized. I grew up by my cousins and many other friends of ours. The late Gabriel Kaju, the late Charles Crawford, his sister Elizabeth, and many other guys. And they were all in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
The late Tommy Raines was our sponsor. And he would come there to our meetings. He would tell us what broadcasting is all about. And every one of the people broadcasters, what we had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of prepares some of us in the direction of broadcasting.
Yeah.
I think you know Gabriel well.
Yes. I know Gabriel Kodakachu, the late Gabriel Kodakachu.
Yeah. So the two of us from the organization went into broadcasting and went for LPS.
Okay, and it was a good thing that Tommy Raines came along to tutor and help you guys realize what it means to be in broadcast journalism, and some of the tips and other things that he shared with you help you a whole lot. So that was before 1982, and you officially began with ELBC in 1982, and you started as a broadcaster on the air. Now, what was it like? What was your experience? What are some of the memories that you can share with us at ELBC?
Before this, starting with many of our material that we recorded for the Voice of Wi-Fi, there were a lot of people who helped us along the way. Gabriel, I don't know where he is right now. Patrick Kuman is in Minnesota. You know, they help us along the way getting some of our materials on air. So, and then later on in school, I was a part of the high school spectrum. You know, we went to report for the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was selected at one point as the best reporter for the week.
Mm.
Yeah, so, and many of the guys at LPS saw me and thought that I had the potential of becoming a good broadcaster. So, they put an interest in me, talking about what a guy named Patrick Kuman was one of them.
Mm.
I met him at a program at Boswan. Yeah, I used to be my friend. I used to go by his house to visit him. And we'll go out hanging out. And one time he took me to ELCM. I don't know you know, but that radio very time is called ELCM.
Yes.
Yeah. And You were thinking about opening the station. When he told me that he was training the guys there to open the station, yes, yeah. And I just said he was training as well.
But it was true that, you know, from what I've seen so far, other people along the way helped you. Tommy Rains came your way from the beginning, Patrick Coleman came your way, and so you begin to build your skills gradually as you listen. But that, of course, requires you to pretty much listen well and get all the tips you needed, and that, of course, help you to be a full broadcaster.
For many, many years, I was from the wanted show for many years, but then at one point, the management decided, well, let's also present a TV show in the afternoon and in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but well, we can do that, okay, I want the multi show. It knew without faith. So we started, you know, brainstorming on how to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we would the information.
Good. What were some of your challenges that you can share with our watching audience now, and when it comes to such program, producing program, gathering the material, and then having deliver over the air?
It's something that I learned from the OAN, Tommy, Gabriel Dickman, and Patrick Coleman, and all that. That you have to be focused. You got to be hardworking. I mean, you changes. There's no shortcut to the profession. So I didn't take any shortcut. Sometimes spent hours in the studio trying to perfect what I was doing. Even after producing it, put them on the air, also recording it. And I still wasn't happy with it. I still wasn't happy. And I listened to it and there's no mistakes. And look forward to making that correction the next time.
Mm-hmm. That's Patrick Manjo.
Dr. Johnson, are you there?
Yeah. The new focus is to be.
Dr. Johnson, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, you can take it over.
That's Patrick Manjo, and I think I speak for everyone when we say that we owe a great debt of gratitude to the likes of Patrick Manjo and other seniors who laid the path and blazed the trail for that which we've taken over today. And so our hats off to Patrick Manjo and all our senior colleagues. This year's convention is reflecting on the theme, the media, the rule of law, and the culture of impunity in Nigeria. In order to help us set the stage and help us frame our own ideas and set the agenda for our next year's advocacy work, we've invited a list of speakers whom we feel have the requisite knowledge, expertise, and experience surrounding this question. Among those invited today are Councillor Cyril Jones, Professor of Law, Louis Arthur Grant School. Councillor Jones is a constitutional scholar. He teaches civil law, civil procedure and constitutional law at the Louis Arthur Grant School of Law. He also conducts seminars on civil procedural law in Liberia and other civil procedural jurisdictions, and analysis of the operations of the functions of the Liberian government in relation to the spirit and intent of the Liberian Constitution. He's a former member of the Judiciary Inquiry Commission of the Supreme Court of Liberia, a former president of the Liberian National Bar Association, and current member of the Grievance and Ethics Committee of the Supreme Court of Liberia. I will now present Councillor Jones as he presents his own paper to this convention. Councillor Jones. Can Monrika please pick it up now?
Thank you. Please allow me to breach the usual protocol of greeting everybody in the audience and those on the audience individually. It seems to me that to comply with such a protocol will consume a significant portion of the 10 minutes allotted to me for my presentation. Although time is short, I must also mention that in the program listing, the speakers and panelists, it is reading Councillor Jones, School of Law, University of Liberia. Please also let me clarify that I received an invitation from Alja informing me that its national leadership in the Americas had selected me to be one of the speakers for the Alja 2020 National Convention, and my selection was based on what the leadership perceived to be my knowledge of the country's law and constitution, and to deliver a paper on the topic, the media, the rule of law, and the culture of impunity in Liberia. According to Oxford New Essential Dictionary 2008, media is the plural of the word medium, which means to distribute information. This means that the media is the means for distributing information. Even though I'm listed in the program against the notation School of Law, University of Liberia, I must admit that I am an associate professor of law, Louis Arthur Grimes School of Law, University of Liberia, and have been teaching law at the University of Liberia for about 20 years, and I am currently a professor of constitutional law and civil procedure law. There you go. I am not, however, representing the law school or its faculty. My presentation here is strictly in my personal capacity and primarily as a professor and counselor of the Supreme Court Bar, Republic of Liberia. Thank you. Your organization is the Association of American Journalists in the Americas. Journalism, therefore, is a form of distribution of information. You are a part of the media, and your purpose is to distribute information. The Oxford New Essential Dictionary defines information as something told or knowledge. And for the purpose of the law, I take the liberty to add something factually told and factual knowledge. By factual, it implies that that which is told has met the test of proof to be true. The media, therefore, is under a duty to tell that which is true and to be responsible for the quantum of truth of what is told. The common global description of the media or the press is the fifth estate. It is reported from Google that the term fifth estate or the fifth power refers to the press and news media, both in explicit capacity of advocacy and implicit ability to frame political issues.
Though it is not formally recognized as a part of a political system, it wields significant indirect social influence. The derivation of the term folk estate arises from the traditional European concept of the three estates of the realm: the clergy, the nobility, and the commoner. The equivalent term folk power is somewhat uncommon in English, but it is used in many European languages. The Germans, vet gubal; Spanish, cuate podre; French, quatem mouvier, to refer to a government's separation of power into legislative, executive, and judicial branches. By reasoning, the press or the media is also another branch of the political system that evolved into its own power as a balancer in a political state. This makes it an independent force in any and every political system. As in a republican form of government, in which the government is divided into three branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary, all of which is derived from the Constitution, the Liberian Constitution being no exception. The media is not mentioned as a branch of government, but the freedom of the use and exercise of it is an inherent provision in the Liberian Constitution, 1986. Article 14 of the 1986 Constitution of Liberia states, and I quote, "All persons shall be entitled to freedom of thought," and it is expressly confirmed in Article 15A that, quote, "Every person shall have the right of freedom of expression, being fully responsible for the abuse thereof," and it is particularly to you as the media. "The right shall not be curtailed, restricted, or enjoined by government, save an emergency declared in accordance with the Constitution," unquote. With a limitation in paragraph E that the freedom may be limited only by a judicial action in proceedings grounded in defamation or eviction of the right of privacy and publicity, or in the commercial aspect of expression in deception, false advertising, and copyright infringement. Freedom of expression is not without limitation. Mr. Justice Janet, speaking for the Supreme Court on January 21, 2011, in the case in re contempt proceedings against Rodney C., editor-in-chief of the Front Page newspaper, provided a clear interpretation on what the Supreme Court considers the limitation to this freedom of speech is. Justice Janet, quoting Article 13 of the revised Constitution and bylaws of the Press Union of Liberia, which provides that the journalist should not publish or broadcast false information or unproven allegation. And Article 19 of the PUL's ethical code places the obligation on every media to, quote, "make adequate inquiries across, check the facts before publication," quote. Failing any of these, a journalist is automatically subject to punishment, irrespective of the damage done in the content of the publication or the lack of genuine facts contained therein. The Constitution of Liberia, 1986, provides that every person every person accused of the commission of any wrongful act must be given an opportunity to confront his accuser and defend himself, no matter who or what it is. This, therefore, is the rule of law. Article 20 of the Liberian Constitution 1986 specifically states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, security of person, property, privilege, or any other rights except as the outcome of a hearing judgment consistent with the provision laid in this Constitution and in accordance with the due process of law. This is an explicit pronouncement of your fundamental and inalienable right. This very guarantee of civil liberty was also originally provided for in the 1847 Constitution of Liberia and then included in the 1986 Constitution of Liberia. While in the Constitution, of the United States of America, from where the Constitution of Liberia is believed to have its origin, there are more civil liberties guaranteed in the Liberian Constitution than in the United States Constitution. Because the liberties guaranteed in the United States Constitution were never originally included in the Constitution that was drafted, that was adopted to at the time of the establishment of the U.S. Constitution. But rather, it was done by way of amendment in 1791, a period of 15 years after the establishment of the United States of America in 1776. And it is limited only in Amendment 5, or what is called the Fifth Amendment of the American Constitution, to be, and I quote, what are the liberties guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution? Nor to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That is all. From the wordings quoted above, one can see that the Liberian Constitution from its inception always guaranteed to its citizens and people the inalienable right to life, liberty, security of person, property, and even privilege of any other right except as the outcome of a hearing judgment consistent with the provisions laid down in the Constitution and in accordance with due process of law. While the United States Constitution guaranteed to its citizens and people the inalienable right not to be deprived of only life, liberty, or property without due process of law. In words, the Constitution of Liberia is a perfect guarantor of personal and individual liberties. It is a respecter of freedom, and these liberties are only limited, restricted, or penalized when exercised after a hearing, or it should be after a hearing consistent with those provisions laid in the Constitution and in accordance with due process. As far back as in 1937, the Supreme Court of Liberia in the landmark case, Wallow versus Wallow, declared that, and I'm quoting, what is meant by the expression due process of law? It has been defined as a law which hears before it condemns, which proceeds upon inquiry and renders judgment only after trial. Law in its regular course of administration, court of justice. In the same case, in 1937, The Supreme Court went further to say, quote, the term due process of law is synonymous to law of the land. The Constitution contains no description of those processes which it was intended to allow or to forbid, and it does not even declare what principles are to be applied to ascertain whether it is due process of law or not. But clearly, it is not left to the legislative branch to enact any process that must be devised. Due process of law does not mean the general body of law, common and statute, as it was at the time the Constitution took effect.
No, I think he said that. He's not going to take it.
It means certain fundamental rights which our system of jurisprudence has always allowed. The term due process of law, when applied to judicial proceedings, means there must be a competent tribunal to pass on the subject matter. There must be notice, actual or constructive, and opportunity to appear and produce evidence, to be heard in person or by counsel. And if the subject matter involves the determination of personal liberty of the defendant, he must be brought under the jurisdiction by service of process within the state or his voluntary appearance. Having read such profound declaration of the guarantee and protection of civil liberties declared by the Supreme Court of Liberia as far back as 1937, one can only conclude that the only problem with the enforcement of the laws of Liberia and the development of the culture of impunity, and as for me, with respect to the exercise of that freedom in the country, is our own human, and specifically the lack of political will and proper application of the laws in this country. Why then is the press or our journalists in Liberia continuously providing to the public some unfounded and unsubstantiated, sensational headlines and stories? Why are politicians who are owners of media houses using and expressing derogatory, debasing, and offensive statements against each other with impunity? This is because, notwithstanding the protective and supportive laws provided in the Constitution of Liberia, guaranteeing the right to the free exercise of certain liberties, there is no satisfactory mechanism for the scrutiny of potential journalists and media personnel and the proper sanction against those who violate and abuse these civil liberties, respecting the provisions of the Constitution and consistent with due process of law. In this context, one can clearly wonder why was such well-provided guarantee of civil liberties in our organic laws in this country, the fundamental rights of individuals and even members of the press be sometimes abused. And on the other hand, why do media personnel publish false and misleading information with wanton disregard to the rights of others? I believe that a review of these questions may take recourse to the strategy now applied in the judicial and justice systems of Liberia. I have searched and cannot find a reported case of a properly prosecuted malpractice suit in this jurisdiction. It is no secret that this is because the limited number of qualified personnel we have in different areas of technical expertise in the country, i.e. medicine, engineering, media, law, etc., in regard to their personal knowledge of and interaction with one another, a professional generally hesitates to testify against the other in a suit or malpractice. To ameliorate this situation of not demanding a colleague to appear and testify in a trial that will cause another colleague to lose his right to practice his profession is in the case of my profession, lawyering. The judiciary has established the Judicial Inquiry Commission and the Grievance and Ethics Committee. These are essentially the self-regulating bodies of the lawyers by judgment of their own peers, consistent with the provisions laid in the Constitution of Liberia and in accordance with due process of law. Judges and lawyers are therefore given the authority to scrutinize the performances of their colleagues upon a complaint for wrong or unethical practices, and after production of evidence and the opportunity to be heard and confront the accuser, a judgment is rendered, and with the full participation of their colleagues and peers for the guarantee and enhancement of the professional integrity of the legal profession. It is therefore my recommendation that, armed with the sufficient authority of a legislation, an independent commission be established that will have the authority to issue license to media entities and personnel. This commission should also be empowered to investigate complaints brought against media entities and personnel, and to have the power, after due hearing, consistent with the laws of the Constitution and in accordance with due process, suspend the licenses of media entities and personnel, and to recommend to the government regulating agency the power to revoke all licenses and to even proceed by mandamus to compel its decisions to be adhered to in a court of competent jurisdiction should any government regulating agency fail or refuse to enforce its ruling after a trial had been had consistent with due process. I hope I have adequately exhausted the topic I've presented. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, we are hard pressed for time, starting up late, and we are targeting to end this convention in the shortest possible time. So may I appeal to everyone and ask for your indulgence that we try to stay within our limited time or try to be as brief as possible. Our next speaker is Caroline Boa, co-founder of the Liberian Feminist Forum. The issue of rape and the insecurity of women and girls in Liberia has taken center stage. Quite recently, we saw women of Liberia protesting in the streets of Monrovia, demanding the government's action. Madam Boa, a feminist and women rights advocate, she's a co-founder of the Liberian Feminist Forum and country director of Medical Mondial Liberia, the women rights and relief organization. She assumed this position in 2013, leading the organization's transition to an entirely local leadership in 2014. She holds a master's in economic management from Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, and has lectured economic courses at the University of Liberia. I now have the pleasure to present to you Madam Caroline Boa.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sam Johnson, for the introduction. And thanks very much to Alja for this invitation to be able to shed some light on the situation of women and girls. I think it's critical when we talk about the issues what the role the media can play, and also how impunity has been largely responsible for the quality of cases that we're having. I'd like to just start with providing a context. So we know that women in Nigeria make up about half of the population, so that's very significant. But again, given entrenched social norms, we do have different impacts on women. The other issues in Liberia, context showcase the history of violence, intimidation, but also abuse of power, both for women and girls, predominantly sexual, and using power as a means to intimidate women. As a result, the country between a 14-year civil crisis, which we all are aware of, which we're all aware of, and which ended in 2003, showcased the effects of the self-intimidation, which has over time contributed towards the vulnerability of women and girls in the country. Now, when we talk about sexual and gender-based violence issues, when we talk about sexual and gender-based violence issues, we're in terms of how it is done, it's really around enforcing power, the use of power, and creating an environment which sort of takes away the agency from women. And we saw this very visibly during the heat of the civil conflict, but we've also seen it, I think, even prior to pre-war. But again, we would not speak about sexual and gender-based violence as that. I don't even believe that most of us knew that terminology, how to describe it, but also there was a whole issue around, being hushed, being silenced, not being able to speak about it. It was supposed to be a family matter, it was supposed to be a family affair. So as a result of all of this, SGBV has been recognized as a key characteristic of the Civil War. But also, like I just mentioned, even in current times, we've seen the headlines on newspapers. Again, during epidemics, during humanitarian crises, we do have an exacerbation of these various cases. Liberia has a very high incidence of sexual and gender-based violence, which accounts for about 60% of all crimes reported annually. That is quite huge. We're reporting about 60% of all crimes, which is affecting almost half of the population in the country. Then that should be very concerning for us. Rape is being reported as the most single cases over the period, and usually it's around 80% of those HPV cases. Again, as a result of all these cases, it does impact women in different ways. We have FGM, we have traditional practices that are practiced across the country which affect women. Also, we have high levels of poverty. We know that these are contexts that impact women. We operate a dual legal system, the statutory and customary, which does create loopholes where women can be violated because one law says another. For example, we talk about age of consent. Age of consent in the statutory is around 18, but we have traditional practices which put age of consent at 16. This sort of contradiction creates loopholes that women can be violated. I know I'm being pressed with time, so I just like to highlight some of the stats. 2014, we do have about 395 cases of sexual and gender-based violence cases being reported. In 2015, we have 1,555 cases. In this 1,885 in 2018, 2,000. So these are very, huge numbers that we're referring to. One woman raped, one woman abused, for me, is concerning. Now, what is the issue with impunity? We have court systems that don't function. We have the corruption in the courts. You have women coming to trial and being asked to detail accounts of how they have been raped. So all of these issues are issues challenge to come forward, but also to be able to get justice. There's also compromising those cases within the family at the family level, or their influence in other ways to be able to take their cases out of court. Now, I'd like to end to just highlight the role of the media, since we're talking about the media. I know time is pressed. So the media, I believe, can be a facilitator in terms of the critical role, the critical space, the critical platform that the media has. So just in terms of how you shift gender stereotypes, just in terms of how you shift attitudes around women and girls. So I believe that that's powerful too. If we use it in the right way, we do have a role in terms of the media that can play, that the media can play. But we've seen how the media report these cases, we sort of re-victimize, we sort of reinforce gender stereotypes. So I believe that going forward, the media can, and again, this might even need some sort of training, but also just some sort of awareness as to how we, the media, contribute to this fight against sexual and gender violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline, for those stats that you just presented. At the center of this whole discussion concerning the rule of law and the culture of impunity is the role of the media. And I can't say how much this has been emphasized so far by the two speakers. We will now invite Mr. James Botti, who is going to speak to us about the media and the rule of law. Mr. Botti is managing editor, host of Daybreak Africa radio program for the Voice of America. He's a career broadcaster and has worked for several media entities, including the Voice of Plebo in Plebo, Maryland County, Liberia, in the West Africa magazine as Washington correspondent. He holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Minnesota, a master's degree in mass communication from Howard University, and a diploma in radio and television broadcasting from Brown Institute, now Brown College in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mr. Botti.
Well, thank you very much again. First of all, Mr. Mason and all my fellow journalists on this forum. I am very honored to be to join you today. Especially the distinguished speakers you have outlined. As in your organization, the Association of Liberian Journalists in the in the Americas, your continuation of highlighting the plight of journalism in Liberia deserves just to be praised. And I want to thank you very much for that. Before I go on to just say my few words, I just wanted to say that you know, it took a while for me to accept to appear today because of our restrictions. So although I work for Voice of America, I just wanted to say that what I'm going to say, I'm here on my personal behalf, not representing VOA officially. So everything I say here is my personal, it's strictly mine, not the official voice of the Voice of America. So what I want to do before I go, I don't know if I can share my screen with can I do that?
Yeah, you can share the screen. Yeah.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, Mr. Botti, just a second. We can admit you to do that.
That's what making, the moderator has to make it a co-host. That's the only way you'll be able to share the screen.
Yeah, now you can go right ahead.
Oh, okay, just give me a minute. Give me a minute. Let me try to do that.
Okay. Perfect.
You were Secretary General.
My Secretary General, you're the president of the channel, man. My Secretary General, I didn't see her. I thought you would have called to find out what's happening.
Maybe she's watching from home.
She's watching.
Yeah, but she's a facilitator.
She's a facilitator.
Yeah, so she's a very good facilitator. So she needed to be here. And you know, she said she's going to bring a raspberry and all that.
She's not in that movie.
No, she's not.
Desaponte 2 minutes gone. So I'm collecting, are you collecting?
Dr. Bolte, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. It's part of the technology. So, again, what I would like to do, I wanted to be able to share my screen with everyone. So, as I was saying,
I see your screen.
Oh, you can see it?
Yeah, I see focus.
Oh, really? Okay, thank you. So basically today what I'd like to do is to highlight exactly what the association can do to effectively support a free and independent media in Liberia. So first, I want to I want to begin with my own journey, how I became. Again, I was born, as you rightly say, I was born, in Grand Gita County, and now River G. My parents did not speak English, but they instilled in me the value of always speaking the truth. I'm talking about how I became a journalist. And so I also wanted to just fill the information gap between the urban area and the rural area. So throughout these decades, I've tried my best, just to fulfill that role, to be the voice of the voiceless. Basically, what I say here today is going to be limited because I am still practicing. I'm still practicing journalism. So what I say will be limited or be constrained. So I want to talk basically of the role of the Voice of America. Again, the Voice of America is the U.S. government voice to the world. We are protected by the Charter of the Voice of America, and it allows us to speak and report the news accurately and objectively. Underneath that, also we have the firewall. The firewall is the United States Congress law that prohibits any government interference in the work that we do. What do I do? As you mentioned rightly, I represent Lpr Africa. I'm the managing editor, and it's in the English to Africa division. 25 million listeners and viewers almost every year, and it's growing. We, as I was researching, the role of the media has already been highlighted. But as I was researching, I came across this by Jamie Appreciate. This was in 1998, and he said, just the role of the media is to inform the public on democratic choices, to provoke public debate on issues, also uncover abuses and report with accuracy and value. And also to alert the public to humanitarian causes and injustices. The theme of this is to talk about impunity and to use trained professional reporters who are knowledgeable about the subject that they are reporting on. I want to skip this one. This slide I like to skip. It just talks about the Liberian media at a glance. We have the proliferation of Liberian media, and so I am briefly just to say the number of television stations. Terrestrial is 7 television stations, digital 1, radio station 60, just in Monrovia alone. Community, of course, there are community radio stations that we are still don't know about in the different counties. newspapers 20, Monrovia alone, the internet usage 624,610, and Facebook. Again, I'm saying this because just to highlight the proliferation of the media in Liberia. Now, my coverage. At the Voice of America, I've covered Liberia for decades, and I continue to do that. It has also put a burden, what I call the burden of the nation, where almost everyone who has a story to tell will come and say, but can you help us put our story on? Of course, I also represent Africa. So it creates a situation for me every day where I have to make these choices. There's also been trials and tribulations, which I am not going to speak on because, as I said again, I am restricted because I'm still practicing as a journalist. Some people have seen, have looked at my relationship with the work that I do on transactional relationship. They see it as a transactional relationship. That is, and this is a problem with Liberian journalists where officials will come and say, oh, please, report on this and you get this amount. No. And I've said no. I've been guided by my professionalism as for the Voice of America Charter and the firewall. Now, the Liberian media challenges the lack of proper training and equipment is important for Liberian media. Government interference. These are some of the challenges. Low pay, gender disparity. These are some of the challenges, and as I would like for this organization to be doing as we move forward, is to, and this is why I come to my next slide, the role of the Association of the Liberian Journalists in the Americas. Sometime back, I read in 2018, one of your president, Moses Sandy, said that your organization has set up a media development fund. I'd like to encourage you that that's very good. And you should continue to do that. Lobby for professional exchanges with some of the media institutions in the developed world, the Voice of America, New York Times, Washington Post, the BBC. Be ready, for example, because some of these people may not be able to pay for journalists who are coming from Liberia. Those of you who are here, be ready to offer housing for those journalists when they come to do any professional exchange. Continue to speak out against the laws that criminalize freedom of the press and accountability. I want to say this is very important. In order for you to do all of these, the association to accomplish and do all these, you must be accountable and transparent. Your organization must be accountable and transparent. Now, before I leave, I'll be available to answer questions, but I wanted to say that my final word is to the young journalists who are listening today. Please, the road to professionalism is paved not all the time with gold, but it's paved with personal sacrifices. In order to reach your pinnacle of being a professional, be prepared to make sacrifices. I am a typical example, and I can share with you more on this, on what I mean. So please, to be a true professional, be prepared to make sacrifices. That's what I have to say. I'm available for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Botti. Mr. Botti joined us from Washington, D.C. here in the United States. Among those, and before I go to the next point, Mr. Botti is a founding member of Alja. Among those guests who are watching this event today is Mr. Talbot Yinswa, former Director General of the National Public Health Institute of Liberia and current research associate at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. We want to welcome you, Mr. Yinswa. Our next speaker, we're going to continue going forward with the question of the media's role, and so I will beg the indulgence of our speakers to allow us to make this adjustment. We'll now begin to look at the issue of the media, disability rights, and the issue of security for disabled people. And so we've invited Dr. Amy Hewitt, who is the director at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. Her work focuses on the intersection of community inclusion, quality of life for children and adults with disability and their families. Current research focuses on community living, direct support, workforce development, person-centered planning, thinking, and positive behavior support. She has authored many academic articles and papers. Without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, present to you from the University of Minnesota campus, I believe in Minnesota, Dr. Amy.
Thank you so much for introducing me and for inviting me to talk with you all today. I have to say it's the first time that I've ever had the opportunity to talk to a group that is media professionals and journalists solely, so that's an exciting opportunity for me. I would like to be able to share my screen, so hopefully.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you should have.
Lisa. Hey, I'm so happy to see you.
What's up? Do that. Give me just a second while I get it set up.
What's up? It's you.
Okay, so you should be able to see it now. Can everybody see my screen? Great. So I was asked to be able to speak to all of you about the role of media in promoting the rights and inclusion of people with disabilities in Liberia, as well as other countries throughout the world. Thank you again. As I was introduced, I direct a research institute called the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. We're a part of our College of Education and Human Development, and we really see ourselves as a collective group of individuals who are researchers, trainers, outreach educators around pushing the edge of inclusion of people with disabilities in our communities. And we do that by trying to influence and shape policy and practice. And one of the areas of practice is really around the media and the image that is portrayed in the media of persons with disabilities. So our work is focused on research, training, and various types of information sharing. Our mission, really, I put this in here because I think it's important for you all to understand the context of my message, but our mission is to improve policies and practices that ensure children, youth, and adults with disabilities and those receiving educational supports are valued by and contribute to their communities of choice. And our vision is one in which we have communities that are truly inclusive, where people with all types of disabilities are included, belong, and have valued roles throughout their lives. And one of the best ways for us to be able to reach our vision is to make sure that people in communities all across the world see positive images of people with disabilities, and that the media is promoting behavioral and attitude change in our world citizens about people with disabilities, their capabilities, their abilities. And a part of that is choosing words correctly and choosing words that promote a positive image of people with disabilities and how they contribute to their families, their community, and to our world at large. So using images that sort of are more positive versus negative, and focus on the quality of life of people with disabilities is critically important in your role. And it's all kind of grounded in one of the United Nations treaty, the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And Liberia ratified that in 2012. There's a specific section in this treaty that really calls on the media, names the media specifically, to combat stereotypes and prejudice about people with disabilities, to promote positive perceptions of people with disabilities, and to increase social awareness of people with disabilities. So I think that's kind of the intersection of where centers like the one I work at connects with media across the world. So one of the things that we know is there's widespread disparity on the coverage of disability rights and topics surrounding inclusion, integration, and belonging for people with disabilities in West Africa. There's a lack of what we call person first language and increasingly identity first language. And that's where you really talk about the person, who they are as a person, what they do, their valued roles in our communities in coverage versus sort of pity and feeling sorry for, and in some cases kind of the burden language, which is common in some media. Another piece that's really important is that a lot of times, particularly in African nations, we see disability as being thought of primarily as physical disability or sensory disability. So people who are blind or who can't hear, or people who may be missing limbs, or have problems with the way in which they walk and get around their community. And what is often missing of any coverage are people with non-visible disabilities. So people who have intellectual disability, a developmental disability, cognitive problems, those are often excluded in what coverage does exist in media. And so really thinking about, media does a very nice job of talking about human rights and social justice issues, but in virtually every country in this world, disability rights as a part of that social justice and human rights agenda are omitted. And in many African nations, people who don't have physical or sensory disabilities are often hidden in their family homes, and certainly aren't in school, even if policies in those nations say that they're to be included in school with regular education, with kids receiving regular education. And so thinking about broadening coverage and focusing on disability coverage from that human rights and social justice perspective is critically important. Another aspect of promoting the human dignity and social justice issues is to more broadly cover the positive aspects of people with disabilities. So to find people who are working, who are serving as leaders in their churches, who are supporting kids, any kind of valued role that people with disabilities have, to focus on that type of coverage and avoid kind of those stereotypes that often exist in the cultures where people with disabilities are viewed not as contributing and valued members of the community. So a few ways to do that are really to think about talking to people with disabilities about how they identify themselves, about what they want out of their life, to look at the rights violations. So I can guarantee you in your country, There are rights that are in law, in statute, that are given to people with disabilities, and yet those rights are being violated right and left. And so the more you can focus on uplifting those rights and holding people accountable for those rights, it would be a very important role of the media in changing communities and perceptions about people with disabilities. Another component of that is, as you approach your work, to do that in collaboration with people with disabilities. And so getting to know self-advocacy groups. So a self-advocacy group is a group in which people with disabilities come together and they stand up for their own rights and their own social justice. There are also NGOs in every country that focus on supporting people with disabilities. And so the more you can find those organizations in your communities and highlight disability issues in partnership with them, the more accurate your reflection of disability justice, disability rights, and the lives of people with disabilities will be. The other part of that is thinking about trying to deliver stories that are really accessible, respectful, and inclusive of people with disabilities. And so making sure that they're a part of the storytelling and that it's not just journalists talking on behalf of or for people with disabilities, but to bring them into your stories and help them to shape their words to educate communities about the rights. So here are some critical areas where if you wanted to change, if you wanted to be able to change how people are perceived with disabilities through your work, you could focus on disability employment, inclusive disability employment. Where are people with disabilities working in your communities? Another area is accessibility for people with disabilities. So looking at all the public places in your community where people go to get services or to request goods, and being able to look at whether those places are accessible for people with disabilities, whether that's a faith community, a school, a government building, are they accessible? And if not, being able to advocate to make them accessible as a kind of slant on your story. Also, to be sure that you are intentionally including stories around disabilities other than physical and sensory. So developmental disabilities, autism spectrum disorders, mental health challenges, depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, those kinds of disabilities, and focus on the positive and evidence-based interventions to support this group of individuals in your communities, as well as to promote but also challenge existing policies to ensure that the promises of inclusion and community integration are really available to all people. At our center, one of our charges is to disseminate information, and one of the ways we do that is to capture stories. And I put this resource in this slideshow for you so that you'll go here and just kind of capture, just pay attention to the words that are used, the stories that are told about and with and by people with disabilities, because I think it will give you a feel of how you can bring to life the real life and the valuable contributions and how people with disabilities can and do contribute to their communities. I also left a couple of references for you on the slideshow, which I know the conference organizers can give you, as well as my contact information should you have questions or want any ideas in your work. So that's what I prepared for you. And again, reach out to me if you have any questions or ideas And good luck to you in your continued work, and thank you in advance for taking the issue of disability inclusion to heart and to your media. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hewitt. As we talk about the media, it's really important that we also think about the stock of knowledge and the means of training available in Liberia, especially for local journalists. And so our next speaker is going to take on that topic, and I'll turn you over to Archive Awulateg Ladings to introduce our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Uriah Stogar. He's the head of the Department of Mass Communications at the University of Liberia. Our speaker holds a Master in Communication and Information Services from Tilburg University in the Netherlands.
Mr. Toga will have 10 minutes, so I beg all of us, please, let us hang in there. I know we are pressed for time. It's about to be Emmanuel, Mr. Toga.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. We are delighted to be a part of this annual national convention of the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas. We agree the leadership of the association headed by Joe Mason and hail you for your steadfast engagements with your country of nativity, which demonstrate the level of attachment and bond you feel with this country. We proudly delight in the fact that most, if not all of you, are alumni of the Mass Communication Department. Your individual and collective achievements overseas make us proud of you and ourselves as a department. Making us a part of this event signals to us that you also feel some level of bond with the department, and that pleases us a great deal. We will work with Joe and your leadership to further strengthen the ties between yourselves, the association, and the Department of Mass Communication at the University of Liberia. As the chairman of a university department that trains and qualifies most of our media practitioners, and as a media consumer myself, I feel well placed to throw in a few critical comments on the theme, specifically on the role and performance of the media during this crucial period of our existence as a nation and people. The realization of the cultural, social, economic, and political aspirations of a given people have remained the fulcrum of the work of the media and journalists. In other words, the key function of media is to empower citizens by providing information that is accurate, factual, and useful so that they can make decisions on matters ranging from policy issues to consumer goods. It is in recognition of this significant role that the Liberia Herald, funded by African American Charles Force, was put into operations in 1826. As a tabloid, the newspaper propagated the ambitions and goals of Liberia, then referred to as the colony. This was followed by countless newspapers publishing in war and in peace times. Among them was yesterday's Herald and today's Front Page Africa. I mentioned the two without any prejudice to the impressive work the others have done and still do to keep the political elites in check and to assist people make informed voting decisions in elections. However, the task of the media and journalists to keep political elites on their toes has never been a stroll on the beach. No, it has been, still is, and may remain a dangerous fight for media practitioners. Scores of our colleagues perceived to be critical against bad governance, hence rendered as enemies of the state, bear psychological and physical scars from harassment, physical assault, detention, and or even death. Yesterday were journalists Stanton Peabody, Rufus Dapo, Charles Wayon, Bill Frank Inouye, John Vambo, etc. And recently publisher Rodney Sie, who had a 5,000-year prison sentence slammed on him for uncovering political misdeeds. Other examples are Christopher Walker of FPA, Zeno Miller of OKFM, and Omaska Mark, a journalist and current student of the Mass Communication Department, who recently received a deadly wound to the head for reporting on voter trucking ahead of the midterm elections. These are a few of the journalists who have suffered at the hands of state securities and party loyalists for simply attempting to fulfill their duties to the Liberian people. While we condemn the brutalities and attacks against the media, we encourage media practitioners to respect the rule of law and the ethics that govern the profession. If the media will be effective in promoting pro-social behaviors and change, they must win public trust through proper conduct. The media in its news covering and reporting must avoid personal biases and partisanship for neutrality, fairness, and objectivity. When done, this will increase public trust in the media, whose job is to promote human dignity, equality, accountability, and transparency, and peace and development. Anything short of this is zero score and can weaken the media's influence and power, hence making it a toothless watchdog. As the largest and most reputable training center for journalism in Liberia, we in the Department of Mass Communication at the University of Liberia take seriously not just the hostilities and unfriendly environment that journalists and media in the media face, but also take seriously the level of unprofessionalism and flagrant disrespect for the code of ethics for excellent journalism that has now engulfed the media and now threatens the credibility of a once noble profession. While we do not claim responsibility for this unfortunate trend, specifically because the behavior does not border on competence as it does on attitude, our department is taking important steps to tighten the noose and improve the quality of learning in the department with the hope of regaining or strengthening the reputation and image of the media. Specifically, we have begun to review our curriculum and teaching methods to bring us on par with others on the continent and abroad. Consistent with our vision, we are proposing a robust change in curriculum that will eventually lead to us becoming a school of communication and media studies, thereby moving our program away from being a journalism-dominated one. When approved and introduced, students entering our department will have alternative beginner career choices in other areas such as corporate communication, public relations, marketing and advertising, film and documentary, to name a few. Given the significant role of the media in strengthening our democracy, especially at this crucial interval, we are also aiming to strengthen our journalism program by introducing new courses to meet present societal needs. For example, we are looking to introducing elections reporting, media monitoring and analysis, SGBV reporting, conflict reporting, natural resources reporting, online news reporting, mobile journalism, etc. These changes are intended to give students specialized journalism skills to meet today's challenges. Additionally, we are proposing the introduction of a certificate program in journalism that could last anywhere from 12 to 18 months. We believe this will open the doors for many of the young people who cannot enter the university for varying reasons to gain proper training under the tutelage of highly trained and qualified media professionals and academics. We are under no illusion that all of these will be easy to achieve. A first challenge associated with this is identifying and attracting qualified faculty, either on adjunct or full-time basis. While we continue to look out and hold discussions with Liberians at home and abroad to come and assist us, we are also exploring opportunities for faculty development, either through exchange programs or advanced study programs for both faculty and students. An additional challenge associated with expanding our program and strengthening our department is in the current learning environment. Both our students and faculty lack access to up-to-date books, whether e-books or paper books. faculty wanting to enrich students' learning experiences through reading activities are hindered by the thought that students do not have access to materials. Additionally, students lack access to computers. Students' lack of access to computers poses another challenge to learning, heightened by the lack of computer knowledge and skills. Struggling students find it difficult to complete assignments intended to get them to engage with learning materials. As we aim to expand our program and bring quality to the learning experience, we are also looking out for help to construct a mini library equipped with computers that can be used to develop students' computer knowledge and digital skills that will prepare them to become effective in the field. Motivated by our desire to professionalize the media landscape by stepping up quality, we are confident that we will succeed in strengthening our department and program for the sake of better journalism in Liberia. Thank you very much.
Dr. Johnson, can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Toga. Our next speaker is no stranger to us. For me, I know her as Roberta Lehman Bowen. I know she's going to hit me for this one. She is a 2011 Nobel Peace Laureate, and she was selected for her work on the nonviolent struggle for the safety of women and for women's rights to full participation in peace-building work and, by extension, governance. In addition to being the founder of the World Peace Foundation, USA Liberia, Madam Bowen currently serves as Executive Director of the Women's Peace and Security Program at Columbia University Earth Institute. She's on the board of the Nobel Women's Initiative and the board of trustees of the Carnegie Corporation of New York. She has been named one of the top 100 most influential people in gender policy by application and one of the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune magazine. She holds an MA in conflict transformation from the Eastern Mennonite University. Without pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Madam Lima Bowen, Assistant Reporter.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and it's only because of you that I will sit on a Zoom for almost 3 hours when you told me 1 hour. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I call this another great day that the Lord has made, and we shall all rejoice and be glad in it. I want to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to the Association of Liberian Journalists in Americas for inviting me to share my thoughts. To President Macy and his executive, I want to say thank you for putting up such a splendid conference. I also must commend the association for keeping Liberia front and center of your daily existence. I always say being Liberian is not just in the passport you hold or your status of residence wherever you find yourself. Being Liberian is in your blood. It is that bloodline as Liberians that propels all of us to stand up, or some of us to stand up and speak out against the ills and difficulties our land is confronted with. A few weeks ago, I found myself in company of some Ghanaian businessmen and Liberians here in Ghana. The conversation drifted to politics in Liberia and the state of our nation. One businessman, a Ghanaian who has a business interest in Liberia, proceeded to describe my motherland. He talked about so many things. I was extremely heartbroken, sad. This led me when I got home to write a letter to Mama Liberia. I reference this experience because although it left me pained, I cannot genuinely say that this businessman did not raise almost all of Liberia's issues presented here today. From a dysfunctional country with absolutely no regard for the rule of law, to how doomed Liberians are because of the lack of investment in our youth, to the poor state of our academic institutions. I could go on. We often say that the truth is very difficult to swallow, but that conversation is our country's sad reality. It hurts to hear, but it is the truth. I have spent almost all of my adult life advocating for women's rights and peace, not just in Liberia, on the continent and globally. In this period, I have seen, and Liberia has seen, some very crude and callous leaders. The Taylor era was no walk in the park. We were all aware of what we were up against. Military dictatorship dressed as democracy. Today, it isn't easy to describe what exactly Liberia has in terms of government. Thanks to Finance Minister Twer, I know that they're toying with the idea of a benevolent dictatorship. But for a lack of a better word, I would describe our current government as, or our current government system as the pregnant rat democracy. And this is coined by me. Bite and blow. One day there seems to be real interest in the people, especially during election circles. And then another day, a total lack of interest. Corruption, human rights violation, poor health and educational system, lack of proper redress for citizens concerned are few of the numerous issues that we are confronted with daily, and have seen governments' lack of political will in some cases to prosecute where prosecution is needed, or respond when citizens are seeking answers to burning concerns as seen recently with the rape protests in Liberia. Impunity and other entrenched corrupt practices can be seen within our systems and communities, from local vendors to the police to the press publishing fake news. A few months ago, I found myself in Buon County. I started to buy food at one of the local markets. A little boy, about 10 years old, came and said, "Auntie, let me help you. So my bag here spoke to me in Pella. Let me hold your bag." I said, "You selling your plastic bag?" He said, "Yes." "How much?" $100. "No problem." So we went along. I chatted with him as I bought my produce. When we ended the journey, I got to my car, handed him 500 Liberian dollars, and got in the car. As I waited for other passengers to get in the car, this little boy came running back to say, "You didn't pay me." To say I was upset is an understatement. I let loose every bad word I knew in Pele, and the village fined me at that moment. But that, in my opinion, is corruption on nursery. And in a few years, if you give that child any position of authority, you cannot even begin to imagine what he will do. Liberia today, prosecution is still something that is difficult to find. We turn a blind eye in many instances to Liberia's institutional problems. We have neglected the rule of law. Even worse, we are still stuck in the mode. In every democratic circle we've seen since the end of the war, we are stuck in that our time to eat mode. The media principally must play a significant role to expose all of the ills in our society. It is time for them to work and move forward as enshrined in their mandate. It has repeatedly been said that the media is the watchdog of society. Sadly, in our current political landscape, the media has become the guard dogs for those who are the highest bidder. I know I'm not going to be very popular after today, but I'm not looking for popularity. What I'm looking for is how we can put together. Sam and Joe, you knew what you were looking for when you invited us. The media, again, has become guard dogs for the highest bidder. In most instances, politicians who will pay them to distort the truth, leading desperate citizens astray. The irony also is that we often heard that a pen is mightier than the sword. Today, the pen in Liberia serves as dull, overused axe with no substance. Those in the entity who are keen on putting out truth are often discouraged by their colleagues and their peers. Corruption starts from every corner, and the cattle is key to the media's way of doing business. I heard also recently from someone that corruption or corrupt regimes have 77 lives. And any journalist or any media institution that dares to try and stand up to it will fail. I refuse to accept that as the reality of the world that we live in. Journalists and activists and every truth-loving citizen must stand up. If we are able to kill one of the 77 lives in our lifetime, we leave the other 76 for another core of honest people to come and tackle. The current state of Liberia can no longer afford mediocrity. To transform Liberia, we must all harness the best within us, starting with putting country first. Those of us who have been charged to teach must teach, knowing that our children's future is tied to the time, energy, and love we invest in our profession. Those who are called to be watchdogs of society must resist the urge to distort the truth for cattle, knowing that regardless of how hard we crush the truth, it will rise and history will judge us harshly. Similarly, those charged to serve must serve, knowing that Liberia has a history of leaders who repeatedly fail to prioritize our advancement. We cannot, as a people, plant corruption and expect to reap sustainable development and peace. It has been said often that insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. For us to harness peace, we must also begin to redefine what is peace to us as Liberians. Peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is the presence of every condition that dignifies you and I. And with this definition, can we definitely or can we clearly state or emphatically state that Liberia has peace? My answer is a resounding no. The conditions that our people live in is not something that is for us to talk about over and over. The poor state of our nation, the hardship, the poverty, the get rich quick scheme in political life of many of our politicians is something that we must all stand up and speak out about. The Liberia we have today, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, cannot afford to stand aside and watch as we seek personal interest over the nation's good. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he or she must take it because his conscience tells him it is right. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the times are calling us all to do what is right, true, just, and fair. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Gilbert. With your indulgence, I will appeal that you remain around and maybe there could be one or two questions from the audience. Do I have your will and play?
Anything for you, my brother.
All right, so distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the rule of the game. For all of us at watch parties, if
adding
you have
more
questions,
voice.
I
So
will ask that you
what is
refer
doing here?
to
It is quite
my
unprecedented that
co-facilitators
the
at these parties.
associations of Liberian
In
journalists.
Minneapolis, Minnesota is Joey
Yeah, you
Kennedy.
have the Minnesota chapter,
In Delaware here,
Alex
in
of
Newcastle
Delaware
is
chapter, and the PVO
Akai
and the
Odunate
presidents of
Williams.
Liberia, also
In
in
Monrovia
Northern
is Clarence
the network.
Jackson, and I think
Additionally,
Malcolm
we
Joseph is
usually
also
meet
going to be assisting in that
because of the
direction.
COVID-19.
For those
We
of you who are
have
not at any of the viewing parties or
thankfully
watching
it's
this
been heard
program, with
virtually.
intention to ask questions, I will urge you to please
Liberia
put your
team,
questions into
Ola
the chat,
also there
and as
as
time
one of
permits, I'm
the
going to
vibes
read them out.
in the nation's
So we
capital.
want to start
I am
first
also Zins
with
here at
Minnesota,
here
where the
at
president resides,
TV.
and I will ask Joey Kennedy to take it over from there. We are going to field
in the media.
3
Let's go
questions
right
from
back, guys.
Minneapolis
Delegates
for our panelists.
hear what next to say.
So Joey is coming to, I think this. Oh, yeah, when you become. Thank you so much, Sam, for moderating so far. We have a couple of questions here. So first, let me just ask mine.
I believe it's Q&A section.
I don't know what the council.
We're going to go around, so we're going to take the first three from you.
Okay. Okay, good. So I'll be starting because I have a question. I think the council is still available.
Like your folks that's and listeners.
In his recommendation, he intimated a need
this
to
is what
establish
radio
an
has.
independent commission.
We're going to take a quick
that will
question
license
on our
journalists in Liberia, as well as support his request. Also, James, Barry, what do you think about the recommendation and also the other presenters? What's your disposition on the recommendation? And then our next question will come from veteran Patrick Kuhlman. Veteran.
Worship concert conventions of the Association of Journalists. Let's go back to the podium. These questions, how they're going to be answered.
Yeah, Lincoln Bryan has a question, so he's coming up.
Okay, thank you so much. My question specifically, I'll be asking Lema. I've listened to your presentation and I was great. Some of the points you raised and some of the issues in our country that you raised are quite.
Well, this is the Lpr Public Radio live from the YMCA building in Monrovia, where 2020 convention of the Association of Journalists. Please, where you are, please, we would love to welcome you to Lpr Public Radio. This virtual. My name is Mark Don. I'm here along with Joshua. Right, together we are bringing you this. Thanks to our CEO, Mr. Alfonso so who is live there.
Okay, so we allowed it.
You are public. So the moderator
so
of
it's
the
over to
virtual
you, Lima in
conference,
Accra, Councillor Jones in Monrovia, James in Washington,
as you
DC,
can see,
Caroline Boa also in
left
Monrovia.
there.
You can take a start.
He's there and moderator, so the president of Alja, Mr. Dave, is also online.
to the
Well,
question
it's
on
a
the
very much
licensing of journalists.
unique occasion here from the YC
If
building
I'm not mistaken,
in
I think
Monrovia.
the Press
This
Union
is
of Liberia
the
has a
sixth
role in this, and
ordinary
also
convention
the
of
Ministry
the
of Information.
Association of
I think they
Liberian
have a
in the
responsibility to license
Americas,
journalists.
Alja, taking place today
So the Press
at
Union of
the
Liberia, I
YC
think
building
this is very
in
important
Monrovia.
because what's
It's the
happening is
time
that one of the things
Liberia
might
is
be trying to do my presentation.
4:26
The
p.m.
level of
Nigerian time.
journalism in Liberia now, while there is a proliferation of the media, the quality of journalism has deteriorated. This is very, very important. So the need to license who becomes a journalist is very important. I was speaking to my older brother, David Barty, who did work for the ministry of the Liberian News Agency. I know he's now in Detroit. He did work for the news here. And when he was there at the Ministry of Information at the Liberian News Agency, he observed some things like two types of journalists. There's those who wanted to enter the journalism profession and those who wanted to join the listing. Join the listing are those people who want to just get into the journalism profession and not willing to do the work that is required. The others who wanted to be journalists and enter the journalism profession were willing to work hard and improve their well-being. That's what I said in my closing, that if you want to be a journalist, you must be prepared to make sacrifices. Nothing comes easily. The professionalism is not given to you on a silver platter. I am a typical example. There was a time that my wife and I could not afford
the state
rent.
of the Republic of
I had
Liberia.
to do other things that would support my professionalism.
For breaking that off and
This
we'll
is why
let's go
I'm
right back.
here today. No one can look at me and say, "Oh, James Bucky, I gave you money to do this." That's not there. Because I have made the sacrifice to be who I am. That's why you see me. I'm at the Voice of America. That's why you see me. I'm in charge of a lot of journalists trying to report to me. Because I set the example. So the issue of licensing, someone needs to, I think the press union needs to crack down in terms of who really gets the license to become journalists. The Ministry of Information, I think they are also supposed to be doing that. Patrick Kume, you asked a question. If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned something about President Trump. Can somebody please repeat that question to me?
Mr. Kume, dare to restate his question?
Yes,
he is doing that.
Yes. I want you to comment on President Blair of Liberia closing a cautious radio station and President Trump of the United States of America dissolving the board of directors of. Well, I think let me start with your question on the President Trump. When I made my presentation, I spoke about the Voice of America. We, the journalists at Voice of America, are guided by the charter of the Voice of America. We are also guided by the firewall. That's the United States Congress law that prohibits any government official from trying to influence the content of what we do, what we report. It prohibits, you cannot punish me or try to get me to change the way to report because of this is the way this official thinks. See, the board of the Voice of America, that is appointed. It's appointed. I think it's a political appointment, I'm not sure, but that is the way it goes. But in terms of what we, the journalists at Voice of America, do, we are guided by this law, the United States Congress law, that says you cannot force us, you cannot make us to report from your political point of view. Therefore, we do not represent any political interest. We do not. With regard to President, we are in the closure of podcast show of the radio station. I did cover that. I interviewed both Costa, I interviewed the Minister of Information about that. Again, Costa explained to me what the motivation was. The government also had its motivation why it closed down the radio station. So I'm glad that maybe eventually things are moving the way they're moving, but I heard both sides of it, right? So I want to leave it there.
All right, thank you. Anybody want to go in? I want to
at some point I'll have to on the issue of the issue that Councillor Jones raised about starting a new integrity entity to kind of like oversee the media in Liberia. My question would be to us, is it the same caliber of people that will be occupying that new entity? And if the answer is yes, is basically putting new old wines in new bottles. I think the problem the media and many other entities in Liberia are confronted with is independence. I go back to the press union. You cannot have an independent press union of Liberia when those who want to take on the leadership will be so desperate for leadership that they will take cash from the government to run their campaign. You lay down with dog, you wake up with fleas. If the media in Liberia must be independent, even the election process must be independent. So if you want to be president, you are standing your ground and saying, I'm not taking rock or change from anyone. I will run my campaign amongst my colleagues based on my integrity. And once I get into this seat, I am going to run this organization with the integrity that is supposed to be run with. Independence is very key into the whole media functioning in Liberia. I don't, even if we go and bring down Angel Gabriel and Michael and say, come and do this, as long as people are taking money from here, center to get into, because if I am running for a particular leadership and I'm taking money from people who we do not share similar values, definitely I will have to compromise. That's where I want to leave that, and this is food for thought. So what recommendations can we give? One of the things when Sam started talking, and yes, he's my brother, and everything about him is great. When Sam started talking at the beginning of the Zoom call, I was like, oh my God, don't we miss these kinds of eloquent speaking on the radio in Liberia? Some days you got to just shut it down. I'm not saying all is bad, but Jesus. Where's the president of the press union? How can you oversee an entity when the people cannot even so training? Yes, I agree, training, and this is where Alja needs to really get involved with the press union because there's a need for training. But the other thing that I think is important even for all of the media entities, including Alja, is that there's a need for gender parity. Someone wrote it down. Where are the women? Where is Fijal? I think in this particular Zoom call, there should have been a slot made for the female journalists of Liberia to say something. We can't be talking about rape, abuse, all of the different things, and then you leave out the women's arm of your entity. But it's time now. The press union cannot operate like a lot of these other entities, the old boys club, when you have strong women trying to step in, and then they say, oh, you can't get there. That's the other thing.
The other thing is that, and I like that you're supporting, because they said they went and take money sacrificing. But young journalists also have to be mentored. Most times we hear in Liberia, oh, those of you who have the platform, you don't want to mentor people. I see Malcolm sitting there. How many young journalists have come to him to say, Malcolm, can you mentor me? The sad reality of our country is that once some of us, the young people, get on the airplane and come to General Assembly, once they become experts. So they have to be open to mentorship, and there should be a kind of mentorship program. Maybe the associations of Liberian journalists in America can start something like that. On the issue of rape, I know that the government has set up this whole roadmap on SGBV. One thing that I would like to, several things I would like to make. I think some of the recommendation is that in being in the field, working with women every county, most times people leave the case because they do not have money to take their relatives to the hospital. So they need for them to set up rape units in all of the referral hospitals around Liberia so that victims can get free treatment. That's the first thing. A revision of the rape law. I spoke with some of the women of the female lawyers association of Liberia, and it's key that we go and look at the law again, because in most cases people will just, the judges, they do whatever they feel like doing in terms of sentencing. Finally, I think there's a need for us to prosecute parents who will sacrifice their children for whatever cash. Let's settle out of court. I think it's important for us, and then sensitization all the way on the issue of rape and abuse. But I haven't given up on Liberia. And Sam, I'm saying this because I'm sadly leaving the call, and I apologize for all those who have questions for me. I haven't given up on Liberia. I've been just in a Liberia that will include people. The work that we do in Liberia is not individual. We can't continue to operate in silos. It's not about how you feel about Liverpool personally, but how can we bring our values together for the greater good of Liberia. We say in union strong, success is sure. And I think this is the spirit that we have to push our nation to. In union strong, success is definitely sure. Thank you, Sam, for having me. Thank you, President Mason. Thanks to all of you. God bless you all and have a wonderful deliberation.
Thank you very much for sharing with us. We know we're not happy to let you go going, but we appreciate the thoughtful presentation today.
My team members won't kill you, Sam. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a blessed weekend.
All right. So, gentlemen, we are pressed for time, so we want to reframe the rules. Instead of having the speakers to respond to each question individually, what we want to do is we want to field the questions from across, and so that now you're on board. We want to take questions from Monrovia. We'll have the guys to pose their questions. We urge the speakers to kindly take notes. We want to take questions here from Delaware and some of the questions in the chat, then let the speakers to respond to it.
So what is next?
Are we good? So I will ask my co-facilitator in Monrovia, Mr. Malcolm Joseph, who I'm employing now as my co-facilitator, and Clarence, to please field the questions from there for the speakers to hear, and then we're going to go around, and then we'll let them respond afterwards.
For Monrovia, those who will be asking questions will introduce themselves and pose the question and the appropriate speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alja. This is my first participation, and I really appreciate it. I wish you've been doing it like this in the past. Thank you to the panelists. My question goes to Carolyn Boaz from the Lpr Feminist Forum. But before that, let me say thank you to Sis Lema, because she's almost went into what I want to say, but it's good that she did not go keep up. I also want to take this time to say thank you to the Lpr media for flagging the issue of SGBV. The whole noise about rape and everything that is going on in Liberia now is only because the media is leading on. I was just reminded to introduce myself. My name is Adaska Johnson. I'm the head of the Female Journalists Association of Liberia. Let me just end by saying thank you to bravo to the media for all the noise about SGBV and running with it. And I'm glad that the media is in the forefront. To Caroline Boana, Caroline, you spoke about SGBV, you spoke about the issue of bringing everything in Liberia. I just want to know, we know in Liberia the media is challenged. What can you people do, those in the advocacy grouping, those in the NGOs, and those that are around that can source funding? What can you do to continue empowering the media so we can be able to run with it? I'm not saying we are not running with it because we have money, but we know where your mouth is, that where your hands should be. So what can the NGO community, what can the NGO community do to continue helping the media so they keep running with the issue of SGBV? Thank you so much.
Will please be brief as we pose our questions.
There from area, but it is
Ambassador himself.
My is a suggestion. One of the speakers, much is respected of the media. My suggestion to you, as an organization of which I am a member, and all of the media development in the country, is to see how we can engage the media to do those things that our lawyers, our advocates, and all of the speakers are speaking about. We need to engage in media development that will enhance societal development. So I'm calling on our organization, now Alja, and all of the organizations in Liberia, media development, to engage in specialized development that will buttress our activities as professional people. Thank you very much.
We now have the president of the Reporters Association of Liberia. Can I respond to, can I add something to the question? No, let's take the question.
Can we just take this last question, then you can respond, please?
Okay. Please, we have a couple of other questions.
My name is Cecilia Clark, and I'm the president of the Reporters Association of Liberia. Thanks for having me. I acknowledge the issue that Madam Bowie spoke about concerning cattle. I mean, the issue that has to do with cattle. But you see, we as reporters in Liberia are challenged. This is no justification concerning the issue of cattle. But you see, reporters are challenged. And I'm referring to reporters because they are the ones that most of the time the issue of cattle is being attributed to. Sadly, most of the entities in Liberia, media entities, are owned by people that were once reporters, but they tend not to support reporters to the extent that I'm not even talking about financial support, but even training. They are not even providing training for those people, and the welfare reporters are not being highlighted by those individuals. Sadly, they are the ones that were once reporters, and they know they come and difficulties that reporters go through. So, like I said, I'm not trying to justify the issue of reporters, but you cannot be professional to the letter in the absence of your welfare being highlighted by those that you are in their employ. So I will ask the people in the diaspora, those reporters that are in the diaspora, I mean journalists, what can you do to help reporters in Liberia to perform their duties for our cattle and other things? And my recommendation would be speaking relative to training, financial support, that we get them to have the gadgets and other things that they will be able to operate. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, please, can we take 2 more questions, please?
We'll go back to Monrovia.
Yes, maybe.
Okay, let's take 2 questions. Can the people who are asking be brief?
Yeah, sure. Please, let's reduce it to 30 seconds.
But the people who are there, so they gotta give them the time and give them
But I want to say is that I'm happy that we are able to mention the media issues. The media, besides being challenged and facing multiples of problems in Liberia, we need to involve instead of just talking and criticizing what the media needs. There are actions that are credible and viable to the growth and strengthening of the media. So the Association of Liberian Journalists in the United States, where I attended your last conference, and today we are involved with such things. If you look back there, we see over 15 of our journalists that we are developing into diversifying the media, leaving the old school technology. Media things have changed. So I want the association in the United States and other international universities that have intention to train and develop media to come to Liberia and get involved. And we are working with the Female Journalists Association. This is why I want to promote women journalists in Liberia. Thank you.
Is there still a comment? Because I think what we are hearing is a more comment than this question.
For me, Jonathan Kelele, and like Jim said, I'm representing myself here, I'm not speaking for the BBC or for the Associated Press. And mine is not a question, but just take a cue from what the Nobel laureate said with emphasis about independence. And I couldn't agree with her more, but I think the problem we have here is real independence cannot exist with poverty. And until we can really fight poverty in the Liberian media, we continue to talk about independence, independence, and independence. This is not to justify unethical attitudes on the part of journalists, but I think we all have to look for a way. I'm sorry that Lima had left, but all of us should use our connections to see how the media community in Liberia can be empowered so that they don't have to turn to people who are responsible for the problems that we have in Liberia to be the one to support the work of media people. We have had a situation where a government official has said that they will make sure that journalists in Liberia live in poverty for 12 years. But the same people are the ones that some media people have to go to for survival. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. But I think the aspect of independence should be a session that we can discuss to see what support can be looked for media in Liberia to not crumble. Independence is important. We have to get rid of poverty in the media community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we leave from media, I want to read this question that came up from James Jensen, who is a lawyer from Penn State Law and Louis Arthur Grimes School. His question is to Prof. Jones. He says, your recommendations are troubling. The Constitution of Liberia gives no one a right to curtail, restrict, or enjoin free speech, a right protected. Responsible for any abuse, anyone can be sanctioned by curtailing, restricting, or enjoining. So can you please clarify, Professor Jones? And so,
can we take the last question from Honorable?
Yeah. Okay, let's take the last.
For time for a question, I think you will mute, right?
1 minute.
Yeah. That is
yeah, I want to come in. Good afternoon. My name is Paul M. Bodu. I think I'm aware about everything here, and specifically about the moderator or the guest speaker, whosoever, for the basic fact is that there has been intensive training going on here. And like I think I'm making a video. And the basic fact, what will Alja do effectively to improve the situation? Most of the situations that we spoken about that we need to improve. What will Alja do in the best direction?
Is he in America?
Yeah, you have the questions?
Thank you. Okay, Ansel, you have to use the chat. Since you're not part of any of the viewing party, can you please use the chat? Just go down at the lower end of the screen, you will see chat. Send your question. Do we have anyone in Delaware? Delaware, is there any question?
Yes, we have questions for Delaware.
Delaware, is there any question?
Yes,
we have questions.
We got questions. I see you
This
guys.
is the moderator.
Yes, Delaware has
questions.
questions.
We have questions, Dr.
If
Johnson.
you hold on, once you're not part of viewing party, gentlemen, so we don't have a crisis here, you just use the chat. The chat is right at the lower end of the screen. Delaware, you have feedback coming in. Can you please reduce this volume?
Okay, we have 3 questions from Delaware. The first one is from Mr. Sam Abu, former editor of Star Radio.
Good afternoon to the world. My simple question is, actually in Liberia, every time things happen, we tend to ignore it and we let it run thinking that we'll finish. We have the Press Union of Liberia, which has been the main group representing the interests of journalists. We keep hearing another group, called itself as Society of Liberian Journalists. So this question is for Mr. Coffey. What are you doing at this time? We don't want it to be like a government where you look at another group and you do not respond to them until they form a very big group. Knowing very well that those who are promoting this group are working for media institutions that are owned by government functionaries. In the end, they will give them article of incorporation and give them relevance, and they start to fight against you and confuse all of us. So what are you doing to put a nip on that top?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abu. Second question will be from Mr. Jackson Seaton. He's the president of the Delaware chapter.
Thank you, Madam Secretary General. As she already stated, my name is Jackson T.S. Seaton. I represent the Delaware Valley chapter as the president. When I was in Liberia, I served as a reporter with the Inquirer newspaper. I also was the legislative reporter for the Inquirer and also the executive mansion reporter. The last position I held at the Inquirer was that of news editor before migrating to the United States. My question is to Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, you eloquently stated that the Liberian Constitution guarantees the rights and protection of every Liberian. My question is, why is it that there is pervasive impunity in Liberia? And what can be done to curtail this menace? Thank you.
Thank you, President Seaton. And also, we have another question from the National Vice President, Mr. Pee-wee Besa.
Thank you. My question is straightforward. This is to Caroline Boa. What is the fundamental damage being caused by rape in Liberia, with the complete silence of the Liberian government and the perpetrators left with impunity?
Mr. Moderator, if you can permit me, can I take one more question, please? From the former President Emeritus, Mr. Moses Sandy, please. One more question, please. Yeah, one more for Mr. Moses Sandy. Thank you.
Moderator, actually mine is not a question. I just want to make an observation in reference to this proposition regarding the licensing of journalists in Liberia. Like most of the speakers said, I think it is another significant challenge. The problem of unprofessionalism in the Liberian media is not an issue of licensing. We have the Ministry of Information, we have the PL, Press Union of Liberia. These institutions collaborate in the accreditation of journalists. And my assumption is that the process itself
is very, very rigorous. It takes into consideration the person's level of education, training, and professional standard or professional background, if you will. Now, the way forward is fighting poverty in the media. The problem of poverty in the Liberian media is an age-old problem. This is a problem that many of us, when we got into the media, we met this problem. If a reporter is paid hypothetically $1,500 Liberian dollars, how objective can such a reporter be when someone offers $100 as gratuity, or in Liberian parlance, cato? The only way forward is to provide livable wages for journalists in Liberia. There's extreme poverty in the Liberian media. Poverty is eroding the credibility of the Liberian media.
Okay, thank you. That's all for our idea.
You missed me. You saw it, man. Okay, we'll go back.
One is from Edison Istina, in the New England chapter. Out of concern, first, if Ansel Corner from Monrovia posted a comment also, and I think it's important. Let me read that. During my tenure as chairman of the Welfare Committee of the Press Union of Liberia, we developed a media welfare policy which set a minimum wage for journalists at $250 United States dollars. The policy should have been discussed and adopted at Atlanta Convention in 2016, but the elections euphoria overshadowed it. I think that's a very good background to start as we think about the challenges facing the media and the role of the media. So I'll now turn it over to our panelists to respond to these questions. Go ahead, Caroline.
So I'll just go around based on the response that I have to some of the questions. I'd just like to speak a little bit about the media and acknowledge the presence of Madam Bowish's. But I think in addition to the issue around independence, there's also the lack of accountability. So what happens, when there are missteps by journalists? How does the association deal with issues around that? Definitely there should be a code of conduct, I'm assuming. And then I think when we talk about poverty as an issue, yes, that's right and that's fair, but I guess poverty is an issue for everything else. So I think we need to dig deeper to how we make the media more professional and how we make the media more credible. Then I come to the questions from Sierra about sexual and gender-based issues. So I think, and then the challenges of the rule of law. We have justice. So you have systems that don't function. For a case to be, for you to pin a particular case, you need forensic evidence to prove that. You don't have DNA machines operating the country. It's just quite recent that the president announced the purchase of 2 DNA machines. Even having those DNA machines require that you have professionals who have integrity to be able to get facts. Just in terms of time, I tried to just bring one case we had several years ago. We had a case where, perpetrator was alleged of rape. He was an international person running one of the international organizations. He was placed in, arrested and was undergoing trial. And the girl was 13 years old. The case, she was taken under custody and placed in a safe home. While she was there, and at the time of giving birth, the family had made a request to be present at the time of birth. At the time of birth, the family were not there. The baby came out black. He was a white man. The judgment there was that the child, the letter did DNA according to what was said, but nobody could really substantiate whether they were independent in terms of the results of the DNA test that come in. So that man was given, that's another story for another day. He was released on bail, medical leave, and he's left the country. So we have systems that do not function. And even if you get DNA machines, those DNA machines need to be managed by people who have integrity. Wow. The way the system works is that you have, she mentioned the medical, you need to have rape units. You can have rape units around the country. Rape units are important, but you need, it's a layer of system that must function. Because if a person comes in with a complaint, that person gets to be, case gets statements to be taken by the police. The police has to be able to record and then come to testify in court. The health person must be able to take the specimen and be able to preserve it and come to court to also testify that this is, the records that we have that we document. So it's a chain of system that we do not see. It's not, you don't fix one thing and then everything fixes. It's a chain of system that we need to deal with. Also, of course, accessibility. How many courts do we have around the country? We have very limited courts. And also, the terms of courts are very short. So there's a number of recommendations that's coming through the recent sexual and gender-based violence anti-rape campaign or conference that was held recently, which to some extent is going to start. But we cannot do all of this if we do not invest the financial resources and we do not have professionals who are able to manage all of these. And then for the media, the role of the media, I think the media and civil society or advocates, there is potential for collaboration. And we've been talking this here for how long now? Because sometimes
You've worked for months to bring your or your client's event to life, but unfortunately, the world had another plan. In reality, the only thing you lost is the venue. We take your vision for hosting a virtual conference and bring it to life online. No matter how complex your agenda is, we produce a smooth, engaging experience. Call the Liberia Public Radio today and schedule your event. Our number is 682-433-8802. If you prefer to submit your request via email, please send the request to liberiapublicradio2012@gmail.com. Our staff are standing by waiting for your phone call.
but also that we are able to create gender-sensitive content in our reporting. Most of the time, we report about women, the way we portray them is not in a very sensitive way. And then how we elevate women into the different spaces and the different platforms we're having. The question around women, when you're saying environment for women, you have a redress mechanism so that issues around sexual violence, within the media itself that we're able to investigate, we're able to take action so that we feel safe. Women who are in the media space feel safe. The reporter mentioned some of the challenges that media.
Sorry, the constitution.
My last response is on fundamental.
US, not of the speakers on the podium. So, like we are
foremost is that there is quest of mental, psychological damage. Superman that one experience, one story is victimized when you get violated. You have some of those, depending on the person's resistance or the person's recovery, some of these damages or some of the effects can be long term. Sometimes we do psychosocial, some of them come in the relapse, giving whatever their other life experiences may be. So there is a huge negative impact in short on victims of unsolved survivors of sexual gender abuse. And this is why we need to be better. We need that when we when one woman gets affected, it means there's a loss to the country as a whole. Thank you.
You didn't answer my question, man.
I think Mr. Jones can
She
pick it
does
up
that,
from
she
here
need
now.
training too. I have to answer question.
Counselor?
When we go into training, she will be part of it. She does
I wanted
very
to add
intensively.
my
She will not
to the question raised by Siaka. Can I do that?
Go ahead, James.
And I think first question was to NGOs and what can they do to empower the media to cover issues like race. I thought the professor from the University of Minnesota, my own alma mater, she articulated very well that issue on reporting on the disadvantage. I think we should report something because it's of interest, it's of human interest, and not what is it that we can get from it. The real difficulty for us at the Voice of America is because we cover the entire world in Africa, we must find space to try to expose issues such as and we do our best. Whenever an issue affects human interest, we try to cover it. So that's one thing. I mean, report something because it's of interest to the public. I don't know what she meant by how much or what the NGOs could do, but I think you should report. Let me just say also that I mentioned earlier making a sacrifice to continue to be a professional. And that I think is very important. Clearly, has been mentioning something about we are independent and poverty. And I think he said those of us with international connection, what can we do? I think that I fit in that role too. And so anybody should feel free to always reach out to me with anything I can do. Okay?
All right, thank you very much, James. Apparently, we lost Monrovia. Hopefully, we'll get back and try to get some connections, but it seems that we've lost Monrovia. All of the camera feeds are coming from Monrovia are no longer.
Yeah, we will join, Sam, we will join for individual, for different locations in Monrovia, still on the line, except the guys at the YMCA.
That is what I'm referring to, also. Thank you. I'm referring to the YMCA.
Okay.
All right, and so giving
Sam.
Go ahead.
Sam, I shared a screen on the welfare policy that we prepared as chairman of the welfare committee.
I read your comment on the welfare policy.
Okay.
I read your comment. Thank you very much. We're going to continue trying to see how we can get Monrovia back online. So at this stage, I will ask Cyrus to play in our next tribute concerning veteran journalist Cyrus Biden.
Just a minute, I'm trying to get that through.
What time
is it Texas? It's in Texas. It's in Texas.
So this from the group, give the hint, I'm trying to get.
They're not even doing all the interlude they're supposed to. Oh, this
Welcome to the Alja 2020 Virtual Convention. This is Give Your Hands the Band. I'm Joe Mason, drummer of the band. I'm Josh Cole, keyboardist of the band. I'm 48, keyboardist of Give Your Hands.
Wow, that's nice. And the first time
Folks, pretty well, you've been listening to the virtual conventions of the Associations of Liberian Journalists based here in the USA. Their counterpart as well, based in Liberia, that's the Press Union of Liberia, PUL. They have also assembled at the YMCA facility that in Monrovia, in solidarity with the sister network here, that's the Associations of Liberian Journalists. Alfonso Zienso at the New England Bureau, the station manager, is based in Pennsylvania, the main headquarters, Mr. Nat Krypor. Mike Dunn is, and the rest of the crew are right there. They are in Liberia at YMCA, bringing you live images here. We lose contact with Minnesota. We've still been trying to get to them. They were quite fascinating. You saw Madam Liman Tobo with the laureate prize winner forcefully that is speaking out. That is quite interesting. Hopefully, we will see whether we can get her here to expand onto her talking point here. But that's what we do here. Just in case in the event you plan your program because of this deadly COVID-19, they can stop you. Let us know. Our contact numbers are always available. You can call us here and we will be this is our number here. That's 682 is on WhatsApp international. You can contact the folks as well in Liberia. Whatever events that you have, we can plan it. This virtual convention is being aired live on the official website of the Liberia Public Radio, www.liberiapublicradio.com, our YouTube channel, our LIB Messenger, and our Twitter line as well. They are all right here onto this network. So just go ahead and you subscribe, click like on this page, and that will allow you to always get on a light to if we are on. So all right, so we'll be going back very shortly here to the folks. Let's see here. Let's see what we can get. We can get them as well. Let's see here. We want to make sure and get information to them. Let's see here that we can bring back the guys in Delaware. And let's see.
No, you can see it. It's muted here, Sam, right here. Right here. Your FPR is not muted.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, 1 second.
Hello, Alfonso, are you there? Alfonso, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
It's been a very quite fascinating. I think,
are you hearing me, Mike?
yes, I'm talking about it, but it sounds like it's just not permitting me to.
Welcome.
To
Thank you very much, Alex. It's a pleasure having me on your platform.
Yeah,
Great.
Now, let us know how.
I got in broadcast journalism professional broadcast journalism now. It was in 1981. I worked then for the Catholic radio station ELCM. At the time, there was only ELWA, the religious radio station, and ELBC. ELCM had just joined in as the second independent radio station, so I found my way with ELCM then. And after a year or so, I made it here at ELBC.
Okay, so that was 1981, 82. You made it to Okay, great. And what motivated you? I mean,
it's something I always wanted to do. I grew up in Grand Crew County, a place called Garraway, around the Seacoast area. For some reason, I just took interest in broadcasting. First, I love speaking. I love speaking, not just speaking, but speaking good English. And so I took a lot of interest in that. So when I was growing up, even when we went to the football field, I took a little stick and I had it to my mouth while the folks were playing, and I would act like I was doing a commentary. Interestingly, sometimes I will even be playing on the field and I will still be doing commentary while playing. So I had this special passion for broadcasting. And I did a lot of that at home. Not only broadcasting, but I did writing, practicing how to write, doing my own recordings and all that. So it was like a self-training. So, when I came to Monrovia in 1974, I started doing the same thing too, doing my own little broadcasting, going to local games around I used to live in parts of community, doing my own sports commentary and all of that. So it is something that actually I wanted to do from day one. I wanted to be a broadcaster. So I worked at that. So when the opportunity came at ELCM, I jumped at it. Of course, ELCM prepared me for a bigger stage. So once the folks started hearing me at ELCM, and then I applied to ELBC, it just clicked. I mean, when I came from my audition, did my test, the written test, and the voice test. I mean, I could see on the faces of Miss Olivia Shannon or Eustace Smith, I mean, before they even told me that I would be accepted into the class, I knew it because I could see that expression on the faces that, this guy has something that we are looking for. So that's how it all happened.
What were some of the challenges that you encountered, and what were some of the success things that you can let our watchers know?
One of the challenges was going to school and being on air at the same time. Because I remember I was at the University of Liberia and I had some morning classes, but my schedule at ELBC was in the morning hours. We used to wake up early in the morning around like 4 o'clock to be here at the station at 5 o'clock. And because then I was doing continuity announcing. I started first as an announcer, continuity announcing. So we had to be here very early in the morning. And I had a morning session, I had morning classes. One of my classes started at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the station was closing at 9 o'clock. So it was a conflict, and it was difficult to have that arrangement where I could continue on the air or forego my classes. I chose that I would not forego those classes, even though I won't get the permission from my bosses to adjust the schedule. So what I did, I pre-arranged my closing. I mean, people recorded it in advance. It was pre-recorded. So at the end of 9 o'clock, I will record, this is Cyrus Radio. Thanks for listening. I've been here since so and so time, and I'm now signing off and all that. It was pre-recorded. So while the recording was playing at 9 o'clock, I tell you.
Are you there?
Yeah. So it was very difficult. I mean, if you have to work in the morning and then go to class at the same time.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. So things are just wrapping up here from the Monrovia end of the convention, but it seems to be a very much laudable convention year from the YMCA building. Liberian journalists coming together. I listened keenly to some of what they were saying. I say relates to what journalists can do and so forth. So let's see what we can talk to some of them here, some of, who have come here. Okay, we can just speak quickly to the president of Liberia, who was also here for this virtual convention with Lpr Radio Live here. Mr. Coffee, welcome to Liberia Public Radio.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Just address a little bit. Can you just use a earpiece so that you have a phone? So
okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, very clear.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Coffee, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. President, thank you so much for taking our time to speak with our folks there. How is it going so far?
Yeah, fine. We're in the political season of our country. And, during the season in our country, there are a lot of difficult situation for the media, respect to sometimes attacks, verbal and physical. So we're trying to mitigate.
Okay. So when you're talking about verbal and physical, how is this issue being addressed so much? This is a challenge to you, and that's part of the responsibility of the media. The media too is being blamed, and it's kind of difficult because they are private-owned media, and those are under the watch of the Liberia of the press unions of Liberia. How can you square those things out so that the media will also be the network that would give the people the true picture instead of insinuations and also exacerbating, not giving fair to report? How difficult is this task?
Well, it's a very tedious task. I listened to some of the speakers and some of them, especially Lehman Bowie, making some comments, but I think
All right, we're having a break in there. Hopefully, that's President Charles Coffey of the Press Union of Liberia. Mr. President, are you hearing me? Okay, Mike, are you there? Okay, let's see here. So the images you see out there, that's the Delaware chapter. The still in section. As a matter of fact, the folks in Liberia, Monrovia, they are wrapping up is after 1 o'clock here, so pretty close to 5 o'clock, I believe, or a little after 5. The transportation issue is a challenge as well. So that's something we can say here. The network here. All right, we just lose control here. Let me just go back here.
Liberia to the United States. I don't know whether you guys desirous of making any closing points at this stage. Within 1 to 2 minutes.
All right. As a matter of fact, we are this program, but tomorrow,
Thank you very much, Alja. This is
time,
Martin.
I will be
I'm
hosting
experienced
senatorial
with
aspirant
the
Princess
association, and I'm
Macaulay
glad
of
that
Mount
Dr.
Keby
Sam
County. She is the only
Johnson,
female
former
contesting for the senatorial tribal battle
lecturer in
senatorial
university,
race there
who's
for Mount Keby County will be my special guest yet on Liberia Corp
through this
at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here in an
I
exclusive
think
interview.
that
She
there's
will
a
be
lot of
joining me here
potential
from Mount
that the
County,
media
Republic of Liberia.
community
Let's go to the
in
folks
this kind of
there,
work further improves
moderators,
our
and see what we can
learning
do.
for further engagement in this sector. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that it was useful for the work that you want to do.
Okay, this is James Bate. Again, thank you very much for the work that the association is doing to highlight the plight of journalism in Liberia. Please feel free to always call me. I'm sorry it took a little while for the invitation to be accepted, but that's the policy that we follow. I mentioned again on the need for professionalism, listening to all the speakers and the journalists from Liberia. The question of independence is very important. If you want your work to be trusted, you have to show independence, no accuracy, fairness. I mentioned to the young journalists that the road to professionalism is paved with a lot of sacrifices. I am one of those people. Before I leave, I just want to say something about I used to want to play, I used to want to learn. I like music, and I wanted to learn how to play guitar. If you want to know more about me, talk to the great Ashley Riley. He knows a lot about this, but how I came to be where I am today. Anyway, I wanted to play guitar, and so the person who knew how to play guitar lived in Upper Maryland County, and I was in school in Cleveland. And every Saturday, I could not even afford my own school fees, but I would save at least $1 or so to pay my way to go to Hartford to learn how to play guitar, and then come back. Again, I say this to speak to sacrifice. If you want to be something, you have to be willing to make a sacrifice. So to the young journalists, please try your best. Professionalism is difficult, but you can do it. Anybody, feel free to always contact me here at the Voice of America, and then we can talk and see how we can move forward. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. We cannot state how grateful we are for the time that you guys took up today to be a part of this great occasion. We appreciate you all high. Thank you very much. So at this stage, we will invite Ambassador George Patton, the Liberian ambassador to the United States, to make remarks. Ambassador Patton will be speaking to us directly from Washington, D.C. Hello, Ambassador.
Hello, thank you. This thing has taken so long. I've had so much to do. I've had to go and come back many times to this computer. But all protocols observed, in the interest of time, I want to bring you great greetings and best wishes from His Excellency Dr. George Weah, our president, your president. President Weah sends his greetings and congratulations to Alja on this national convention. President Weah wishes to assure Alja and the media community that he remains a friend of the community, and the government will continue to support and cooperate with the media community. I recall from Mr. Moses Stanley to Mr. Joe Mason, it was sometime last year. That occasion was a resounding success. It underscored the maturity and progress Alja has made over the years, and how the principles of democracy, governance, and the rule of law have become ingrained in the spirit and attitude of Alja. Prior to that program, Mr. Sandy and some members of Alja, upon my invitation, visited with me at the embassy in Washington, D.C. to discuss collaboration on matters of our country. I wish to commend Mr. Mason and his team for the invitation extended to me to participate in this virtual convention. This is a strong indication, at least in my mind, that the Mason administration aspires to continue our collaboration. My office and phone numbers or phone lines are open. I shall avail myself of any opportunity for cooperation regarding our country and the Liberian people. The communications industry, comprising the print media, publishing, news media, broadcasting, etc., is a critical component of every society. The media provides information and informs the public about issues they would otherwise not be aware of. The media is expected to be present in good times and in bad times. It is expected not only to report bad news and criticize, but to also report good news when good things happen. I encourage the media to continue to be that enlightenment to the Liberian society. The rule of law is that key legal niche, which summons the conformity of every citizen, whether you are an ordinary citizen, whether you work for the government, or whether you are a media practitioner. It is on the rule of law, the respect for human rights and human dignity, protection of life and property is more. Free speech and freedom of the press are fundamental to every society, and they are provided for in the Constitution. Why the government has greater responsibility to ensure the protection of rights and creation of the legal environment for ratification of those rights. Media practitioners are also obliged to abide by the precepts of rule of law. The media has the true sacred responsibility to hold government feet to the fire, as we call it in Nigeria. For the ultimate good of the society, while at the same time ensuring that corrupt and unqualified elements within ranks are not left free to reign with reprimand and reproach. This is not only necessary to guarantee the objectivity and purity of the journalism profession, but also to ensure that media practitioners do not on or violate the rights of others. In Liberia these days, Many have taken advantage from the proliferation of newspapers.
Look at it, when you go in your class, you can be asked.
Many have taken advantage of the proliferation of newspapers and radio stations to organize talk shows, some of which I will expose to then fabrication and falsehood, and malign the character and integrity of good and lawful. Yet, no one is expected to take a legal practitioner to a court of law as to be considered
George Patton, ambassador to Credit DC, is speaking for Washington DC, participating as proxy who represents the Republic of Liberia. You show the situations of internet real-time convention of the Republic of Liberia is usually televised. Last year during the inauguration, Presidential Press Secretary was there as well. So Ambassador Martin is speaking afternoon by Washington DC. Let's go back to Ambassador Martin.
That declaration provides protection for journalists who would otherwise be threatened by lawsuits on account of criminal defamation. The government of His Excellency President William is strongly and firmly committed to protecting free speech and freedom of the press and upholding the rule of law. In February 2019, the government signed into law the Kamara Abdullah Kamara Act of press freedom, effectively nullifying criminal libels against journalists. In the same year, in April, the same year again, I started Liberian when we did the Female Journalists Association with a new two-story headquarters and a brand new 10-seater bus to facilitate the work of the female journalists. President we are since a senior leadership of Liberia, we are allowed to have committed practices inimical to the public good attack were being in various courts in the country. While the government may not have won cases to the satisfaction of the public and the media community, it is taking steps to ensure that people alleged was indulged in unwholesome practices that brought before the law. In conclusion, I will encourage members of Alja to continue to face seriously practice their global craft within the parameters of the law. Checking and balancing the service are pivotal to the growth of our democracy. The media cannot and must not waver in that obligation. What you do with your pens, your microphones, cards, and video recorders can go a long way in building a vibrant and prosperous Liberia. Or it can also stall and impede the progress of Liberia. Together, we must all joyously guide and nourish our flourishing democracy for the benefit of our children and the good of posterity. I thank you for your kind attention.
I will call back the president, Mr. Joe Soniga.
To delegates and members of a journalists, let's take the quick commercial break.
Hallelujah.
Let's go back there. The next speaker.
And I think the other chapters who have elected new leadership, I think we expect them to just take the oath from wheresoever they are virtually. So it's Minnesota and which other chapter, Mr. Mason?
Today I'm pleased to do the formal installation of officers of our Midwest chapter that were recently elected, and I'll also be installing officers for our newly resuscitated chapter.
Just bear with us, folks. We're trying to make some adjustment here. Let's see here. Let's see if we can make some adjustment here quick. I'm not sure what's, let's just bear.
This Eva Savage. Eva, unfortunately, is not feeling too well. She's in practice here today.
I thought you meant to with
Even though these folks are here physically, I'm also going to install simultaneously the newly elected officers of the New England chapter. I want to call Mr. Francis William Stowe, the president of the New England chapter, the president of the he's on usually as well, and Mr. Stowe, I will let you know. And I can raise your hand, please do so wherever you are. I'd also like to introduce the Secretary General-elect of the New England chapter, Mr. Roland Brown, and the Treasurer-elect of the New England chapter, Mr. Moses Wenyu. My assumption is that all these folks are on usually or virtually, and they are following the process. So to the officers who are here and those who are online, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I am recorded.
Alfonso Zian.
I like that. That I will uphold and respect the Constitution.
And I will uphold and respect the Constitution
Of the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas.
the Constitution of the Liberian Journalists in America.
And I will fully execute the function and duties of the office of. And I will
execute the president of the New England chapter.
Yeah, they got gentlemen.
The co-representative. Congratulations to the officers just installed of the New chapter. Congratulations to the officers installed of the New chapter. Congratulations.
But if people turn you up in the Constitution, we need to reverse it because really, they have not performed yet.
The next item on this agenda is
Moses. So we have to give them one more
the last
year,
convention. We commissioned a team to review our constitution. That team is chaired by former President Suwon. I will now invite Mr. Dele to update the convention on the status of the review process.
You're the emeritus.
Now the Constitution is 2 years.
No, it's not a 2 years. They were
Mr. Dele?
Are you Mr. Dele?
Huh?
I see Mr. Dele still here, but I'm not getting any signal from him. Mr. Dele,
Can you hear me now?
you're loud and clear now. Can we see your face, please?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. The technology is trying to do something.
Technology is
technology to
Nobody want to share the screen?
You see, get this one. Okay.
There you go.
All right, there you go. There you go. Are you can see me now, right? Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. Okay,
We are seeing him, Dr. Johnson. All right. So I want to first thank God for your brothers behind me, please. I want to first thank God for the opportunity.
Always ready for something.
To be alive today, and to God be the glory for great things He has done and greater things He will do. We've been called upon by our colleagues to the national leadership and the presidency to review our constitution as a result of the very constructive and heated discussion last year before the convention regarding the participation of people who were coming to the convention but who are not members of the convention.
So also the president, Mr. Sunny, and the incoming president, so advised to review the constitution so that we have the equipment that will guide us into the years to come. So the question was to have the members' participation, to encourage the members' participation into the process, to try the best we could. We did not get the participation that we really anticipated. We had the constitution released more than once, first as a bulk, and then we released some portions, and we still could not get the participation of. Yeah, so we.
But is he part of the committee?
No. Who's that?
Oh, why they keep showing?
Oh, okay. I thought it was from my end. I think it's called Reverend. But so we still forge ahead with the process, knowing that we have to have a draft revised constitution at a convention. The committee and I worked tirelessly. I want to thank God for my committee members, Councilor Jensen and Skadi. We work together to make sure we have a draft for this convention. Before the convention, we release the portions that we focus on. We didn't want to release the entire document since we know you don't have the time to release because of the business schedules. We're going to release that portion that we looked at. Articles in our constitution, but we specifically look at the portions that we think we needed to comment on. And one of those portions has to do with the membership into Alja, taking into consideration what we experienced last year. So we included that in Article 3. We have to do with membership, and we added one or two other sections to strengthen the constitution. So we don't have enough time to go through the constitution now. What I discussed with the president, and I will just relay to you. We will again, after this convention today, go back to it, put everything back together, and release it so that you can have an idea what is there, because we don't want you to accept a document. We want you to be informed to know what you're going to have, because after we do the final insertion of the articles and the corrections we have, because we added some new articles as well and new sessions, we want you to read it, because hopefully by the end of next week, we will assume that all of what we published to you would have been accepted, and that document will then form part of Alja. It's going to be the organic structure of Alja, will govern how we operate, will direct our actions, and the whole 9 years. So I want to encourage you, our colleagues, we're not going to read anything right now because we don't have time. We love reading it, but we can't do that now because we don't have time. We quote unquote time press. We always time press because of the things we have that are needed in our convention. So again, I want to thank you for listening to us. I again want to close by thanking the presidency, the national leadership, Jensen and Kadi. But let me say this much, Brother Tokba from Monrovia, Liberia, he contributed his own contribution to what he thinks should be in the Constitution. I want to really highlight that because he showed interest in the Constitution revision process, and I think it was encouraging that he participated. And then Jensen too, the member of the committee, constructively contributed some portions of the revise that we're going to have. So I want to thank God for all of you. Let's keep our hands to the task. We have a role to play, and I want to encourage you to read your Constitution. Read your Constitution. Know what is there, so that you'll be taken by surprise. Having said that, thank you for the time. If you have any question, I'd be glad to comment. For now, I want to turn it back to you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, that's.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jensen.
Yes, Jensen, go ahead, Jensen.
Just a short comment. Is it possible that this body can agree with a yea vote that upon the completion or the final stage of the Constitution, that it would be accepted as a working document for this Constitution? Because I think that would be proper rather than, just leaving for the convention and completing a document, because I'm afraid that would be outside of the provisions of the Constitution. So if the president or the presiding can just and you guys can further advise on this.
Yes, Jesse, I think you are in order. I believe that to the presidency and the national leadership to comment on that.
President Mason.
Yeah, the president is right here. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. An excellent point, but the feedback at least I'm getting in the hall, and I'm sure that will be probably the consensus amongst most of our members, is that without having seen what the final document will be, it will be a tough thing to vote in absence of seeing the final document. And I understand the committee has had difficulty for people contributing to this process, but I would urge the committee to publish the document, get the views and feedback from our members, and hopefully we can devise a mechanism through which we can approve this document if we have to for a special session. I know the Constitution calls for this setting to be used to approve our Constitution, but in absence of having the membership see what's in the document, it will be tough to have our vote to do that today.
Mr. President, this is we had a situation for a whole year. This back and forth. And we noticed all of our publications, we always mentioned that we didn't want to come to this convention and have what is about to unfold. We had a full year. We published this constitution for comments, no comments. We did it, the draft that we have today, we published it last week, no comment. And then my fear now is coming into fruition.
Let me see without knowing what the views are of some of the other conferees who are in the hall today. Can we go to some of the other members and just get a few views before we arrive at a decision? Let me begin with the people in Delaware. Guys in Delaware, can you let me know what is your will and pleasure regarding the recommendation from the committee president that we vote to approve the constitution today?
Mr. President, I think I understand Mr. Jensen different. I think Mr. Jensen's proposal is that we vote that once the work is completed, the document be accepted for operation. I think that's how I understood Mr. Jensen. Am I correct?
You are right. You are right.
On the document and ask this, we vote now to passing the vote that once the work is finally completed, the document becomes operational.
So the question there is, Mr. Dr. Johnson. The question, Johnson,
on the floors, and so members are having the conversations as to what position should be taken. So let's go back to Minister Chapter, where the president of the union, Mr. Joe Mason, is the chief presider. So let's go back and hear what they are talking.
Let me speak here when you finish. All right, Joe. Can we speak from Delaware? Okay, from the consensus I'm getting from this hall, that's a very good question, a good concern that Jensen put forward. But we don't think is a good idea to vote on a document that has not been finally read by the entire membership. Normally we have national meetings that we have. So if we want to move forward to vote on that, they call it a national meeting, at which time when the documents are completed, we vote on that in our meeting. In as much as we're doing it, the whole thing is done on virtual now. So we can definitely do that subsequently. But having us to agree and vote yield to something that has not been completed, the quorum, the room here doesn't think it's okay.
Mr. President, again, I want to come in and I want to come to the school system.
That's right.
What
All right, we're going to be coming to you, but I definitely that could be the decision I to vote on something in a same short without you saying it, and to just vote for it is quite it's just not possible. So we are waiting to be called as well from New England chapter that are why the school is a piece of documents. I think everybody should have the opportunity to receive it or to digest it, to review it, and we can subsequently make it impact, but to vote on something in a same show that is not in our possession. Let's see. Let's go back here and see what the folks are saying, and perhaps we're going to say.
We want to release this document again, and we're going to get no response for this document. And then we'll come up with the same comments I'm getting from the grandparents and other people. Want to that we don't see. It's already there for us to read. Or first we didn't read it. So I'm just constantly within my that we don't keep dragging ourselves to put it behind it because we are not having the time to read this document. Last but not the least, this document has been a public document. We release it. We encourage you to read it. The president put it in the chat room, on the website and everything. And sadly, up to now, nobody, besides Jensen and the committee and Toba in Liberia, nobody from this place. So I just want to make sure that we know what we're doing so that we can keep dragging our procedures. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Mr. President, just before
the president.
Just before.
That's General Swat that making an argument. The document was posted in traveling to Alja. It was every team member's responsibility to review or peruse the document before coming here, but on the few people date, even though it wasn't sent by email to them. So let's see how this is going to play out.
But as the same, I don't want my statement to be as though we are ignoring an essential aspect. The Constitution says a convention is to discuss these things and take a decision. So if you guys are thinking the problem we community members are trying to circumvent the process, no. It is the body or members who are refused to participate in the process and to come at this convention and you leave. In actual sense of the wording of the Constitution, you are not supposed to take an action until the next convention. Albeit, this body has the final say. I was just trying to see how we could take a decision, and then it says we, the committee members, because as it's been said now, it appears the body wants to participate in the review process at this stage. Something they should have done ever since. Something they should have done ever since.
Okay, in order to make progress, group point council, in order to make progress, because the committee's concern is.
I will draw my comment.
Thank you. So the committee's concern is that left of ourselves, we fail to demonstrate any interest in participating in the process.
I gotta go sleep. You ain't got work to do.
Yes, exactly. I'm another year, we will participate in the process anyway. That is the committee's concern. And I can understand that concern because you're putting a lot of time and effort into getting this work done. So what is the alternative? Because if we don't do anything today, we will not to the next convention in another year.
Exactly.
Alternative, so the three candidates right there, guys.
I have an extraordinary. Yes, we can.
Yeah. No, we can't. We can't. You have like a zoning conference. Yeah.
Been working for about a year, and you expect that by this time to be able to take a decision on it. And today we are not able to take part there. Our average view on taking decision on the document has not been seen. So my suggestion for progress, Mr. President, is that the convention, which is the general body of the institution, authorizes the committee, the Constitutional Review Committee, to ensure that whatever they have, they galvanize and collate all of the elements of the Constitution, circulated to the membership through email, text message, and through the various platforms that we have within the next 1 or 2 days, and we'll be giving a period of 1 week to read and digest it. And after that, and the convention also empowers the president to call an extraordinary session in which we will be able to make we'll be able to go through it and take a vote on it. And the vote that will be taken at our extraordinary convention will serve as an incentive to formally adapt the constitution.
Okay, so that's one suggestion to make progress. Do we have a contrary suggestion? Can I be recognized? Yeah, so I'll have George Lastana to make a comment. George, go ahead. George, go ahead, you're recognized.
I just want to put this question to Mr. Stuart because there was a proposal to him about changing the time of the convention from national time that will have a very old to finding a convenient time. Can you just make a brief comment about that, please?
We don't want to legislate the constitution right now, George. We don't want to stop talking about No, Mr. President, I can just simply say that we haven't asked everybody to not be visited because we didn't have any constitution that was suggesting that. So we didn't really go to the time of the convention and the rest of that. So if anything want to add to that, that we have, you can always add it to that and move ahead, but we didn't follow.
I thought that was the genesis of the entire constitutional review process. I might be wrong, but I can't be corrected.
Demonstrate participation, who was traveling from the diaspora, who was coming enough and engaged in electioneering, they're not being voted for, no, I didn't vote for people. That was one of the crucial issues that we had on that night of that debate. It was a long debate. And we survived that with the convention in lieu of doing our constitution to revisit that. That was the crux of that situation at the time. But the time of the convention was our factor. I thought after the letter of the from the constitution. That's the program. We don't want to discuss what's in the document now. What we're trying to discuss is how we make progress. All the body empowers me.
The president just about the finalize it. The final decision, that's it. Yeah,
so, attention, the president. Okay. Do we have a contrary suggestion to that? Yeah, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is not that. Yeah, thank you very much.
After the same people that are not going to watch Friday won't come a lot.
This is submitting questions. This is submitting questions.
Thank you very much. I think my thought on this, I think the suggestion by the council is a good one, considering how long the process has taken. I'm sure from your perspective, you've read through that document. You may have worked closely with the committee because you put that committee in place. And we trust your judgment as a convention. That's why you're the president. And I'm sure that at some point you may have perused the entire document that was put forth. The general membership did not, read through the document to provide due diligence to the process. I would say that I want to side with the review committee. That we take the year vote here today, and then we're trusting that you work alongside with them, can vouch for the process, and at any point where they do the finalization, it can be put into action. That would be my thought. The body should use you. The body should use you. The governor of the room is suggestion. Exactly. So the suggestion on the floor right now is for this body to empower me for a special
Yes.
Not what public on review by the body. And that's the second thing we will be able to because that is the I'm asking if there is a contrary suggestion to the one made on the weekend. Mr. President,
I just want to make an effort to with the permission of the movement.
But this man, is he part of this committee? But why is he?
Just showing us legal and the call of the with permission, I would just like to be is in the statement. So the movement. But he's just sharing legal opinion. 2 days.
But he has to be.
Anybody is a former colleague.
He has to be recognized.
Thank you, but he left. Yeah, really, the third game, you know, pass result of we have to yeah, we just think of something like that. And they are ready on the same all that all only one not just one more time. Yeah. But the whole virtual thing on there, so that's a different version. So that would be not a determination. What is right? I don't know if I have good enough to but don't also remember we haven't gone through it yet. We don't know what's needed. That is the truth part. The media let us get a positive view.
Mr. President, I think for the sake of progress, we've been here long. I mean, if we keep voting and voting on this one issue, I think the right thing that.
Am I hearing you want to make a point?
Yes.
But you muted.
Yes. Did you mute me?
So you're on mute.
I said muted. Okay, good. So what I was saying, there's no need to be, No. Okay, it's okay. I'm getting it from here. It's okay here. Okay. I think we should make progress, and that is instead of good enough. Jensen has withdrawn his concern, and I think we should make progress. The progress is the way many times is done. I've taken part on constitutional review committees in the past. After in an absence of a seated convention, there is a constitution review conference that normally is held. And then at that constitution review conference, that is when the constitution is reviewed and passed by the body. So as long as we reach that stage, I think, like you rightly said and the rest of the guys, let's get a vote on the floor right now. If I'm given the power, I can move to obtain a vote to move forward with this issue.
So what are we voting for? Asking for the strugglers that
but that's what I said. Convention.
Yeah, but you have to move, and you see why you
have to move and sit there.
But now you get
this thing. You need to unmute this.
No, just
Under our constitution, we have a different for the amendment. In our constitution, that's Article 14. Now, if we went by the popular suggestion, we have violated that position of the constitution that we have not changed anything from that. So what I'm saying, I will keep telling the conscience so that we don't go against what we have as our constitution. We don't have any constitutional review enshrined in our constitution. So if that was to be done, it would have been an addition to our constitution. So my role out here is to force us to be mindful how we proceed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, let's get Moses. Moses, let me ask Khalid and then Khalid to Moses.
What I want to say is rules are made by men and men break rules. So we understand that the Constitution Committee, we've been putting out stuff this whole year and nobody responded. We have 4 people that responded, and we still have stuff to do. I would think we should have an extraordinary session where we can go ahead and discuss this. On a separate note, I will not tolerate for SWA to call me Kabi and call Jensen Mr. Jensen. That is very unacceptable for you to call me Kadi and call the next person Mr. I am Mrs. Not Kadi. Thank you.
All right, let's hear from the President Emeritus.
And you keep calling me Kadi. What's wrong with you?
Mr. President, I just want to piggyback on what my colleagues have said. Time is not in our interest right now, and I do understand the frustration, the hard work, all that have gone into getting this constitution amended, adopted today. But I would like to support the idea that we schedule an extraordinary sessions that will be devoted exclusively to the Constitution. We can meet via this medium, review the Constitution and take a definitive position on it. So I would like to move, if I can obtain the vote.
The deliberation is still ongoing by joining attendees virtually on this document, and we are gradually winding down today's broadcast. And of course, this is the answer to the Group of Radio. And Lpr-Tv, let's go by to the Delaware chapters of Alja, that's Associations of Liberian Journalists based in the Americas, in the virtual convention here. This year, we've been a convention. This convention should have been held in New Jersey area, but because of current health protocols and the COVID-19, this year convention is being done virtually. Let's go back to the facilitator. That's the chief presider of the convention, President Joe Minnesota. Let's go back this.
After which a special session will be called. If that amendment is accepted and with the motion on the floor, I will now say all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Mr. President. Aye. Aye. Gentlemen say 100%.
Dr. Johnson, this is back to you. Can you please mute?
Okay.
Before we wrap up this convention, I want to take this time to recognize a special guest, Mr. Alba Jarjar,
So
Minister Counselor at the Embassy in London, who has been with us ever since we began this event today. Mr. Jarjar, thank you so much.
All right, we are gradually getting down to the wire.
Yeah, he recognized the conference lady.
On the LCC hosted by the Association of Liberian Journalists, Alja. Yeah, let me go back to Dr. Johnson.
Okay.
This is a huge challenge. The first time, so. Keep calling me Kadi and calling Jensen Mr. Jensen. What the hell wrong with him? Then I noticed he said everybody contributed. He didn't call my name, Jensen, and one guy from Morocco. So what wrong with him?
Jaja is still muted, so we will have to proceed. I would like to at this time recognize the members of the resolution committee headed by Councilor James Jensen. The other members are Mr. Joey Kennedy and Priscilla Quia. Do we have Mr. Jaja back online now?
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. Go ahead. 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Johnson, to Joe Mason for the opportunity to be a part of Alja's convention for the first time. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak concerning Liberian media, all of the panelists, our own gay ambassador for spotlighting the issues across the media landscape, globally, thank you. I hope that
I think we are in a waiting period. Been extending our here today to conclude. And for those of you, let's take a quick commercial commitment from some of our sponsors. And for those of you having organizations, associations, and you are contemplating of canceling your convention because of COVID-19, I just hold a piece, let Liberia Public Radio, the Lpr-Tv, and we want to bring that to you. Let's take a quick commercial commitment, and I'll be right back.
You've worked for months to bring your or your client's event to life, but unfortunately, the world had another plan. In reality, the only thing you lost is the venue. We take your vision for hosting a virtual conference and bring it to life online. No matter how complex your agenda is, we produce a smooth, engaging experience. Call the Liberia Public Radio today and schedule your event. Our number is 682-433-8802. If you prefer to submit your request via email, please send the request to liberiapublicradio2012@gmail.com. Our staff are standing by waiting for your phone call.
Is you are scheduling your event and you try to do it.
It's a day to remember.
Let's go back and
on behalf of this year 2020 Alja National Convention, of virtual convention, and the national leadership headed by Joe Mason as National Vice President, Mr. Pew Besa here. I want to acknowledge everything I'm saying here is from my heart, because this is the first convention you've ever heard virtual. I want to acknowledge and commend everyone who worked tirelessly to make 2020 virtual convention a success. I want to take my hat off to our guests, our speakers in Liberia, Ghana, and the USA. Those who made remarks, I want to say a great thank you to you for providing for us food of thoughts to all of us here in Liberia, or there in Liberia and here in America, and also addressing key issues that continue to affect our patrimony, Liberia. I want to say a remarkable thank you to our facilitators, Dr. Sam Johnson, Akaye Glidden, and Lincoln Bryan in Minnesota. To our newly installed officials of the Midwest chapter, and also the New England chapter, headed by Afonso Zion. So I want to say congratulations and welcome aboard. We want to use this time to extend our gratitude to our friends of Alja, all friends of Alja who took the time to be with us today. They sat patiently through this convention with us. As we all retire today, we are not retiring from the works of Alja. Let us go out there and champion the good work that we've started. Let us continue to speak on behalf of those who are not spoken. Let's continue to speak for the ills in society. Alja has not just spoken to the ills in Liberia, they've spoken to the ills even in the US. So let us extend this to the world. Alja has been noted and continue to be noted globally, the work we do and we continue to do. I also want to take this time to say thank you to the President Emeritus. He's the one that actually paved this way for all of us. Mr. Moses Sandy, I want to say thank you for paving the way, and we all have followed. Thank you. As we all retire this afternoon, I want to say you guys dropped safely. People came from Maryland, Kadiatu, Buhari. Mrs. Kadiatu Buhari.
Their time making Marx expressing his
But I call you Cody.
to delegate
Peter Masakwe actually drove from
virtual conventions.
New Jersey. Want to say those who travel far and wide, thank you for coming. And as we continue to promote camaraderie, let us continue to reach out to our colleagues who are sick, our colleagues who we've never thought of for a while. And finally, I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to the very nice networks, KMTV and LPR Radio, right? Yes. I think these guys have been incredible. Yeah. Not only them, we want to also say thank you to our friends in Liberia, the newspapers, Front Page Africa, and all of the auxiliaries that continue to help Alja in promoting our ideas. I want to say thank you. The convention committee incredibly worked hard to pull this. We initially thought that it would not be pulled, but we want to say the committee, Mr. Jackson Peter, on behalf of this convention, I want to say thank you for the splendid work you did to pull this up. And as we all work together moving forward, let us work in unison and let us work in peace. Thank you.